Cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I got to give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I roll my sleeves.
What up? What up? What up, world? Welcome to the Get Right Fantasy Network. I'm Mike Herrick, aka Classic Mike, and tonight I'm here, as always, with my good buddy Kendall from the Fantasy Football Tavern. How you doing, brother?
Hey, brother, I'm doing good. Happy to be with you this fine Friday night.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. I always wait. I can't wait for Friday night. It's always my favorite night of the week. So last night we started off week 8 with the the Vikings at the Rams. We're going to give our quick reactions in a minute and go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, just a quick breakdown of tonight's show. Tonight we're going to be going over a select amount of games for the week 8 slate. We will give you guys some takes on each game and give you guys, one prop bet that we both like for each game. All of that will come from our good friends over at Underdog. Sorry, I always want to say Underdog Fantasy and they changed it. So from Underdog, it's one of the easiest places to play fantasy sports. We enjoy their best ball drafts. We do them every year in the off season, but the in-season stuff is their pick'em contest. It's one of my favorite things to do, where you simply pick higher or lower on the game, the player stats like total yards and touchdowns. So make sure when you guys sign up, make sure you guys use promo code GETRIGHT, and they will help you with 50% deposit match. So now up to $1,000, you put in 10, they're going to give you 5. So make sure you guys are putting in that money. Make sure you guys are using that Get Right promo code when you register. Also, make sure you guys gamble responsibly, of course. So, also, as always, at the end of the show, we're going to have a live Q&A. So make sure you guys are throwing your questions in the chat, and we're going to get to them at the very end of the show. We're only going to be going over technically 7 games. Remember, this week there are no buys. No buys. Everybody plays. But remember, next week there are a few that are going to be out that it's going to be a little bit difficult. But this week, we have no buys. So drop your questions in the chat. We will answer them right away, or we're going to answer them right away at the Q&A section at the very end of the show. Also, just a friendly reminder to everybody out there, please make sure you guys let us know, the format of the league. Make sure you let us know the scoring as well, full, half, standard, tight end premium, the whole deal, just to give us a little bit of a better understanding of your particular situation. If we see a question in the chat that is part of the game that we're talking about, we might answer that question as we go. If it's part of the conversation, we will answer it. We also have super chats on, so don't hesitate to use those. We will stop the show just to answer your particular super chat, and we will get to it and give you the best. We will dig in deep for these because we want to show you how much we care about those. Of course, we care about all of the questions, but especially if you give us a couple bucks. So at the end of the day, please leave your questions in the chat. We're going to get to them at the very end of the show, I promise. And beyond that, make sure you guys also check out our weekly schedule, guys. We are here daily. We are working on getting a Saturday show for you. The only day we are off is Saturday. But we are working on a few different things coming on Saturdays. For now, make sure you guys check us out on these Friday shows. Right after our show, we have Rasta and Phil on the 11 o'clock Eastern. They will do their particular show. It's the second slate of games. And then we also have our Sunday morning show with me, good old Classic Mike. I'll be there to help you guys out, getting ready for Sunday morning with actives, inactives, things like that. Then we have our Monday show with Waiver Wires. We have Tuesday with Fantasy Boardroom with Tycoon. Then on Wednesdays, we have not only our buy-sell show, but we also have Phil with the Extra Point. He goes over some Dynasty show questions and things like that. And then on Thursdays, Phil's back and does a DFS and props show as well. So make sure you guys check that out. Real excited, real, happy that we can get these things going. All righty, Kendall, I'm done. I don't want to talk anymore, but I'm gonna. And now what we're going to do is we're going to be going over the Thursday night breakdown right now. We have the of course, I put the wrong one, or I clicked the wrong one. Hold on one sec. There we go. So we're going to go over the Thursday night recap. Vikings losing 20-30 against the Rams. Oof. Well, first, we're going to go over the good. And I mean, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are back. How? I mean, I wasn't expecting both to be back. Were you?
No, I mean, I honestly I expected Kupp to be, if you looked at like the Vegas like over unders, higher lowers and whatnot, had Kupp at like 9, 10, 11 catches. So it looked like he was going to be an absolute machine. I thought Puka had like the spooky Keenan Allen sort of like, is he going to go run 2 or 3 routes, kind of just go like have a jog? I didn't start him in a couple leagues of record for me. And so it was more or less one of those where I'm like, hey, I have like a Mooney or like a solid, I feel good about this option where like I just can't risk like a 2-point, like almost a 0 there. So yeah, I wasn't expecting Puka to do his thing. I just thought it would be, I thought it would be like kind of watching like the Giants with Neighbors back, but in like a better way. That's kind of what I thought this would be. And I thought it would take some time before the offense looked honestly as good as it did. If the offense just, that was pretty special.
Yeah. I mean, overall Kupp got, his TD, Puka was in and was the target leader at 9, excuse me.
Kind of everyone got there. I mean, I feel like Kupp disappointed a little bit, but literally everyone got there. Puka got there without the touchdown. Kupp got there because of the touchdown, and then Kyron has been ridiculous with his crazy touchdown.
Kyron continues his touchdown streak, over 100 yards in that game. It was incredible. To me, I think Cooper Kupp looked a little bit he looked like he did last year near the end of the season where he was coming back from injury, where he was just a little bit slower and he looked real banged up, and he just didn't look like himself, in my opinion, from the plays that I got to see. Unfortunately, I played softball last night, but I got to see a little bit of the replays of everything, and he just didn't look the same. He kind of, he I don't know how fully healed he is, but he is, he was running at it. To me, it seemed like half speed. Puka was taking hits. He was, really in there blocking and, did a lot of work. I thought at one point, I thought Cooper wasn't playing because I didn't see him in for a while, but they were 41, 42, snaps out of the 70. They were definitely involved. Marcus Robinson had 2 touchdowns as well. He was involved as, part of the game plan. So it was a good night overall for the Rams. Aaron Jones had a wonderful night as well. Nothing outstanding good, but he had a solid night. And of course, Justin Jefferson is just another freak of nature. A fun stat that I heard when I was coming back. First of all, he had 8 catches for 115 yards, which is insane. He had a monster catch at one point. I had to rewatch it.
That catch was sick.
So apparently he passed Randy Moss, who was number 1 at the time, with the most 100-yard games or more in the first 5 years of his career. And I believe it was 38. I think he got 39 with that. So it's incredible. Albert, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Albert is one of our biggest supporters. We always enjoy having Albert here. So thank you, Albert, for joining. So that's kind of the good. Also, Stafford had a really good night, 275 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Really did a great job spreading the ball out. overall against this, Vikings pass rush, which is, very good. So the bad, there wasn't really much. Honestly, there wasn't really a lot of bad. There was a lot of points in this game, a lot of, a lot of love to share. But Jordan Addison, he wasn't really that involved. He was what, I think he was like 2 for 30.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was just
about
bad.
4 points. It was awful.
Yeah. 2 for 22. Nothing crazy, 3 targets. No TJ Hawkinson. He should be back next week. The ugly, other than the lead or the head starting left tackle, I forgot, Gershaw, I think his name is. He had a gruesome knee injury. He's going to be, he's out for the season, which is, sad for them. So other than that, I mean, was there anything crazy that you saw from there, or is that kind of touch everything?
I mean, I feel like it's probably worth mentioning that like the Vikings offense started off extremely hot.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
but they really petered out at the end. I can't tell if that's just good coaching that they figured it out, because on paper the Rams have an awful defense, and I really thought the Vikings were going to be able to do more than what they did. I thought Addison was in a pretty decent spot here. I thought that if the idea was just take away JJ, he's in a nice spot where like TJ's not back yet. I would have expected him to get more involved. And so seeing his usage the way it was pretty disappointing. And I think for me, it tells me that, hey, like this was a smash spot for the Vikings, I think, in a couple ways. And like JJ definitely got there. Darnold definitely had a good game. Like could have been better, but absolutely you felt good about the production that you got for him.
Oh yeah,
it's just disappointing that Addison, I think, like right now JSN looks a lot more valuable in your lineup than Jordan Addison, because Jordan Addison looks like he's more like Xavier Worthy, but even less consistent, which really puts you in a bind. And so Addison was probably a guy you were just starting to flex again and are really upset about it. And I think that's probably the biggest lineup discussion here is like, what's your confidence level in Addison going forward? TJ Hawkinson just got activated today because of that injury, so he's probably going to play next week. I don't think I'm playing Jordan Addison. I think he's a player that because of this game, he's flipped me a little bit towards, I think I need to see it first before I'll do the other way, where there's some players where I'm like, I will let them disappoint me forever and I will always give them a shot. Like Garrett Wilson, for instance, is kind of that guy for me in many ways. Addison is not that guy for me. There'll be better days, but that was telling for me. And TJ, we'll see. That kind of, it scares me a little bit for TJ. Hopefully TJ back in the lineup opens up the offense a little bit. It sounds like they're a team that still wants to get their tight ends involved. We've seen a couple names show up, especially in the tight end, the touchdown sheets. So really looking forward. The Vikings are a team I'm looking forward to watching next week, probably more so than this week, but because of this week, I want to see if their offense can level up one more gear and we were talking about them as like potentially a very elite offense, but really it was a lot of their defense. Their offense just was good enough, but it was a lot of their defense.
They're staying.
I want to see them win games with just their offense. I don't know if they can get there. I think my bet is actually I'm going to take the unders in a lot of like rest of seasons for the Vikings in my head mentally. That was the note I think I'm taking away from this game. And the Rams, this is what they're looking like when they're like Stafford putting up 4 touchdowns and the 2 wide receivers are kind of banged up going up against what should be a really good defense. So they just beat the crap out of a really good defense. And they should get even better and healthier. So I'm kind of definitely looking at Rams a lot more. Like when I look at DFS lineups up and coming, I think I want to target the Rams. I think I'm really looking into that a little bit. Puka might be, he was a trade away target for me. I think he might be flipping into someone I might be thinking about a trade for at some point here. But yeah, good game. It was nice to have a Thursday night football game with a lot of ramifications, a lot of fantasy relevant implications. And I think it was mostly good. We've had a lot of bad news, specifically with injuries. It was finally one where we got guys back and they performed. So that was really, really nice to have. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where when I was watching this particular game overall, like you said, good defense versus the Rams, you were like, oh no, this is going to be, one of the worst. You got to remember, against blitzing teams and against, really heavy blitzing teams, the faster guy, the guy to get the ball out quick is the guy that's going to do well. And Stafford is that guy. And this offense is basically quick slants. It's all this game, all that particular offense is pretty much quick slants, quick out, and find that receiver. And that's what they did. And they did very well doing that. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. So first and foremost, I'm going to do something out of the ordinary. Like I said, normally what we do is we wait until the end, but I can't not say hi to my buddy Patrick Lario right here going, yo, Big Blue, more like we got big blue balls. Nice.
Giants fan in the house?
He's
a long time
one of my Sunday morning guys who I absolutely love. He goes Zach Moss, McMillan, or Adunze.
Ooh. Yeah, I love that he's throwing Rome in there, baby. I got high hopes. One of the things that I like to tell a lot of people, because I'm a big Dynasty player for sure. You guys kind of know me and Phil as total Dynasty degenerates. Typically, what you see with rookie wide receiver arcs is they get schemed. Their snap share goes way up, and they get schemed open looks after a bye pretty consistently. That's when you start to see the second half breakout. Oh, yeah. It used to be just year 2 breakout. Now you're starting to see it more as they're a little more NFL ready. And you do see that right after the bye week. I think right now Keenan Allen is good. They got him open. They got him his touchdowns. They kept him happy. He's not as talented of a player as Rome is, and is probably going to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if Rome, in a great matchup, if Rome doesn't have another big game similar to BTJ earlier, where he only have maybe 4 or 5 catches, but they were for a lot of air yards, putting up basically 4 or 5 catches, 100 yards, maybe gets in the end zone. I like Rome a lot in DFS this week, so just that's a name that you brought up that I know we're not covering that game. I don't think. Maybe we are. I got to look at that later on, but that's
which game, the
Bears.
No, we're not covering the Bears.
Yeah, so I won't go too much into it, but as the Bears truther. In this spot, it is really close. I have to give it to Jalen McMillan here just because I think he's going to get so much work and is already incredibly talented.
Yeah.
I like the offense. I think he's already a pretty good red zone weapon. So I like McMillan's floor ceiling combination better than Rome. Rome would be my second choice, importantly, over Zach Moss for sure. Definitely in PPR. Half PPR, maybe it's a little bit close, but Rome being a touchdown red zone specialist, I think probably levels that out. I think Rome has a good game, but Jalen has a better game. He has to get 6 or 7 targets, where Rome doesn't have to get that kind of work. Yeah, that's how I'm doing it. What about you?
Yeah, I think I have to agree a little bit. They're both a little bit lower on my rankings. Zach Moss is a little bit right now. He's at a 60% share. We're actually going to be going over the Bengals in just 2 seconds. So, Patrick, stay tuned. We're going to talk about them real quick, and especially about the concept of Chase Brown being involved in that offense. One of the things I was going to bring up is, Chase Brown is getting a 60-40 split at this point, and Zach Moss is starting to take a back seat. So all these guys are pretty much around the same tier. I'll probably lean a little bit more Adunze in this case. Just because I agree he'll be involved there. But McMillan is one of those guys that at this point, he's going to get the volume, and volume is pretty much king, and especially from Baker. I mean, I have no problem with, the QBs attached to. So right now I'm probably going to lean McMillan just because of his scenario overall. So Patrick goes, I have McMillan in there for now. We'll see. Started at 5-0. Now I'm 5-2. And lost 4 starters in the last 3 weeks. See you Monday, Mike. Yeah, it's good seeing you, Patrick. Come back on Sunday and we'll catch you there. Don't worry, I see everybody else's questions in the chat. We will get to them. I know I kind of went off script here, but we will get to them shortly. I can't not say hi to one of my big blue fans. So we're gonna go over. We'll go over at least 3, and then I'll try to throw you guys in there. We'll see how that goes. So first and foremost, we're going to start with the Eagles at the Bengals. Bengals are favored by 2.5 points here. Over under is 47.5. Big injuries to know about. Dallas Goedert will be out for this game again. This is his second week being out with a hamstring injury. So, I would think that it's going to be in the next 2 weeks as well. So just be aware of that if you're a Dallas Goedert fan. T. Higgins was added to the injury report today with a quad injury. He is now questionable for Sunday's game. If anything, thankfully this is a 1:00 game. So We'll be able to tell what's going on in this particular scenario early. So come back, watch, on Sunday, and I'll give you the actives and inactives prior to game time. There's a good probability he's either limited or out because I don't see this going well for him getting an injury prior to. So I would pretty much assume he's out. Right now, like I said, the thing that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit was Chase Brown. What are your feelings about him? Currently he's RB29, weeks 6 and 7 when he's gotten the 60 to 40% snap share, in his favor. He's been a top 20 only week 6. He was running back 37 in week 7. Is he startable moving forward, or are you looking for better options at this point?
I think I'm looking for better options, only because I like a lot of the better options right now in particular. Right, I'm able to pivot. I don't think I want to settle. I mean, is that kind of where you're leaning to, or?
Yeah, I haven't found anybody that's worth it at that point. He's not anybody that I really think is viable right now. He's more of a bench stash at this point. And waiting for that right opponent. If I see him going against, the Panthers or the Bills or the Patriots or someone like that, or Dallas, I'm in. But if he's facing teams at the top like Kansas City or, the Lions or the Chargers, no, there's no point. So I'm not really on board with Chase at this point. I think I have to stay away from the running game right now for the Bengals and just stick with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and see how that goes. My next question for you, how do we feel about Jalen Hurts so far? He had 3 weeks without his starting receivers around him. He's currently QB 10 on the year. Now that things have kind of settled down and everybody's coming back except for Dallas Goedert, how do you feel, about the Eagles offense as a whole moving forward? Is there any key piece that you want other than Barkley? Or, do you think this offense is, worth investing in?
I mean, I think there's two sides to it, and I'm just trying to balance out, I have a nuanced take where the Eagles offense is interesting in that they have really high powered fantasy weapons that can either do amazing things and be league winning, but because of the high draft capital, they can be equally depressing, and we've definitely seen that out of Hurts in some cases. He's been disappointing in spots where you didn't want him to be. Saquon being so overwhelmingly good, he's taking up so much of that offense. AJ Brown has been fantastic, but it's really Devonta Smith that, all of a sudden disappeared out of nowhere last week. And I think that's where a lot of the questions are kind of at. So I actually think Devonta Smith is in a pretty good, I might be buying him in a couple of spots, because I think for the most part, the Eagles offense is still going to have to be good enough as the schedule. They have some tougher matchups coming up, and I do think they're going to need to pass the ball. They're going to need to figure it out at some point. I just don't know if they will. I have always been on that train of Hurts has never been an amazing pass catcher. He's just had really great weapons. But I think similar to Purdy's good, but I don't think he's as elite as he would be on just any team. He just has all these weapons around him. So what do I think about the Eagles moving forward in those kind of pieces? I tend to think that Devonta Smith, with somewhat capable quarterback play, is a really good wide receiver, and their offense should be really good. Now that they're all, for the most part, healthy outside of Goddard, I tend to want to bet more for them than against them. They're already there's some negative stuff happening, and they're still putting up points. If I remember them, what I thought of them when they played the Packers early in the season was, man, this is a team just built of weapons, and when they're on, damn, my show notes for early in the season was at week 1, over in the Brazil game, right? Was this Eagles team, I'm gonna try to fit more Eagles pieces into DFS lineups, because when they hit, I think they're gonna be slate shattering. AJ Brown has been close to that. That's been more Jamar Chase than him, but when he's been on, it's been a real game. When Saquon's been on, you smash that slate. So should there be some Devonta Smith in there at some point? I think there has to be. It has to be some regression towards the mean, where it's Devonta Smith is a system play for me, where I think this offense should produce, because you don't have this many weapons together and don't do something with them unless you're the Dallas Cowboys. And will they be their division rival? I don't know quite yet. I tend to be in their favor if that's the question we're asking, is kind of where's the vibes at. Yeah,
Yeah.
they should do better.
Okay. And I mean, I agree. I mean, Devontae Smith only getting 2 targets, 1 catch for -2 yards last week against the Giants of all people, who, currently are middle of the pack against the pass. I think a lot of it had to do with Saquon. It was a big focus, big narrative. They wanted to get him involved and really involved as his revenge game narrative. So I do think that had a little bit to do with it. This week going against the Bengals at, they're 17th best against the wide receivers. I think he can definitely, pull that off against his team. The game script alone, I mean, having Cincy being favored here could definitely help him. So we'll wait and see how that goes. It should be a very interesting game nonetheless.
Yeah. I'm curious about the play calling. I guess it is one quick thing I'll add is that I feel like there's questions about the Eagles coaching staff with the weapons they have around them. 4-2, they're good, but they're asking the question, like, they're not performing as good as their roster indicates they should be, in my opinion, right? And we've seen head coaching have a serious impact on really talented players, right? In pretty monumental ways, both good and bad, right? So I think what I'm curious to watch in this game is, are the Eagles a team where when they face adversity and a really good team, can they just turn it on because in some sense the offensive play calling minds just go full Madden and lay it all on the table and they actually have it, where against lesser competition, they almost play so safe that it ends up just being really awful football and it looks like a terrible, we see that all the time where sometimes it's playing down to your competition, but it's not the players in the field. The play calling just got really stupid. That's kind of what I'm looking for in the Eagles-Bengals game. How often are we passing on first down? That's going to be something I'm looking at. What's the neutral pass script? How aggressive are we utilizing? Can we get Saquon involved in the passing game, which honestly hasn't really been there for a guy who we looked at as an Alvin Kamara 6-7 target a game, elite level guy. He's been getting like less than, I think he's maybe getting 4 targets a game, which is about 50% of where I'd like to see him at, right? So
I can actually tell you exactly how many he's had in the last, his particular share is currently, where is he? There he is. He's getting 3 targets a game. So 3.3 targets per game. So that kind of goes into our next, into our props, which at this point, my prop for this particular game is Saquon Barkley getting higher than 2.5 receptions.
I like that.
Just told you his prop is 3.3 per game. I think he can do it against the Bengals. Negative game script in this case being that the Bengals are 2.5-point favorites. I can see that being, they're going to have to maybe come back in this one and have to dump off a little bit more. I hope Jalen Hurts understands that he has another weapon that he can use underneath because, Dallas Goedert's out. So I do think that this is an opportunity for Barkley. What about you?
So I've got a couple here. So I think that the Jalen Hurts passing line of right now it's at 216.5 passing yards. I like Hurts higher than that, just as like a general. I'm doing this as like a system number where I say, hey, Jalen Hurts with any quarterback from Andy Dalton to whoever, can they put up 216.5 against a Bengals defense and a Bengals offense with these weapons around them? Is Saquon running for like Derrick Henry level 150? Does that create some sort of like common floor where he gets below that a lot? And I think the answer is no for me. I guess that's kind of my take is I think he's only hit below that number twice this season. I think those are both losses too. I'd have to go look that up. I think in general with the weapons back, they're going to have a bit of a get right game on offense, and he's going to be decent in the passing game. Maybe it's 225, maybe it's 235, but definitely higher than. It's one of those plays, we're underdogs are sponsor. You usually have to pick, 2 or more on these games. I like that with Devonta Smith just because he's the cheaper between him and AJ Brown. Maybe that's not the right way of looking at it. Maybe I should ride the hot hand, but Devonta Smith is 54.5 receiving yards. If Marty is saying he's going to have a good passing game with Goddard out, I think Devonta Smith becomes the quicker safety valve. And I can see him like getting there relatively quickly, even if he has like a down game. If he just has a highly targeted game, but a down game, I think he gets there quite a bit One quick mention, though, and this is something I always want to ask you. I look at the Eagles and the Bengals as two pretty high-powered offenses, at least historically. Am I missing something when I see that the over-under is only
It's
47 and a
47,
half?
yeah.
That feels like, for me, I was like, what is Vegas trying to tell me that I am blind to in this game where how is this not a 51, 52 over-under like every Ravens game has been? Because the Ravens also have a really great defense.
Yeah.
So the over-under should be affected by it, and it hasn't. Which one of these teams has an elite defense that I'm missing? Like the Eagles are good, but not elite in my opinion. The Bengals are okay against bad teams. I don't look at them as elite defense. What am I missing?
So they've had 2 weeks that are above 30. Everything else has been below. No, 3 weeks that are above 30. And the rest have been pretty mediocre beyond, under 20, 21, including their first week, which was, where's the first week? 10. So, I mean, they had roughly half their games below 20 points. So that's probably why. I don't know exactly why. I didn't go through all the Eagles. But, maybe that's part of it. Injury, Dallas Goedert, that's a big part of it probably. T. Higgins, most likely going to be out for that one. That probably lowered it a little bit. So there's, it kind of stayed. It opened at 47.5 and it's at 47.5. So it's pretty much where they think it is. So everything's been pretty much the same for this game overall. So we'll wait, we'll wait and see. Hope maybe that will change moving forward. But, it will definitely change on Sunday.
Maybe sprinkling the over on that one, I think is what I'm saying.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So next we got the Ravens, who are favored by 8.5, going to Cleveland to go visit the Browns. Over under for this game is 45 points. Biggest injury news that we want to get, throw out there is Zay Flowers, his ankle. If you noticed in the game that he had last week, he kind of got it rolled up on one of his on his only catch of the night. You could tell that he kind of like twisted it a little bit, and then he hobbled and like kind of crawled his way off the field. But then they threw him back in, and then he didn't really get anything after that. But he was, he didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday. He was limited on Friday. The limited Friday is a good thing in his particular scenario. He could play, but I think it's going to be coming down to the wire. It might be more of a game time decision than a, 70-30 that he plays type scenario. It's more like 50-50 in my mind. So we'll wait and see. So like I said, come back Sunday and I'll let you know. One of the biggest things that we have to talk about is, of course, the change at quarterback. We both saw that Deshaun Watson is now out for the season with the Achilles injury, and Jameis Winston is going to get his chance behind center. How do you feel about the offensive weapons around him in this offense? You have Cedric Tillman, you have Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, David Njoku, Nick Chubb, who did okay, 11 for 22 and a touchdown last week, of course, to get him back in, to the groove. 1 reception on 3 targets for 10 yards. How do you feel about this offense moving forward with Jameis behind center?
I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah,
so on one hand, losing Amari Cooper is real. Like one of the things I was excited for Amari Cooper was a trade for target for me, specifically because I thought either Deshaun is legitimately going to get injured or there's going to be like an excused, Devontae Adams injury, if you will.
Oh, you froze?
Reputations and things going on there. And in that case, I thought Amari Cooper was open quite often. And so I was looking forward to what that pairing could be, right? And so with Amari gone, it's like we're asking the question, what do we think of this offense? But the offense has changed twice. The wide receiver change, and
quarterback.
And of course,
so now it's a whole new offense.
It's a lot to project, and it's not something I would feel super comfortable saying, hey, we have a big edge here. Let's project all this. I think generally I don't feel super in on the offense. I don't think this is one of those situations where
I was going to say, who do you want to invest in?
He's going to go and ball out, and he's going to have 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions every single game and go crazy. I don't think he necessarily has the wide receivers to do it, but I do think he's going to be able to increase their passing offense efficiency by some amount to where it's going to get done. That's not an elite receiving core by any means, but I think it's deep. Like Tillman looked pretty decent. I think Judy is still just a guy, but he's okay. And Elijah Moore is okay, so it's deep enough. Does depth matter when you're Jameis Winston and you're really a first, second read, balls to the walls kind of quarterback? Probably not. So it being deep probably doesn't matter all that much. They're probably going to be an inefficient run first team that punts a lot. And we'll see what Jameis does on third down. I don't think I run it as much because he probably needs a few passing downs to get it done. Him passing the ball is also scary as all hell. I think if anyone benefits, though, I think the tight end is typically the quarterback's best friend. David Njoku, I think, kind of will function as their wide receiver one if we're talking about a beneficiary. Who's to say Jerry Judy's the one, Cedric Tillman's the one? I think they're going to rotate around like more than any other team in the league. And I think Njoku is probably going to be almost like Evan Ingram in some spots, the go-to guy, the guy that I think I can comfortably project for 7-8 plus targets and should get there more than not on the yardage. So that's who I think is kind of how the offense is going to focus around him. Chubb, I think, is going to get there on pure volume alone. Actually, I think he's going to be kind of like J.K. Dobbins, where by default, Dobbins has kind of gotten a little more inefficient. The offense isn't great. Chubb's gonna kind of not good offense that kind of should be inefficient, but he's going to get red zone looks if they ever make it to the red zone. And I think Chubb's going to be okay. So I think Chubb is probably a flex play for me. Good enough. There's some upside. Like Chubb, man, when he's on, right? So he's probably, out of all those guys, he's the guy I'm going to flex, is I like Chubb. I'm going to keep an eye. I'm going to wait and see on Tillman. I got to see one more game. I got to see what that looks like.
Yeah. I got to play him in a few spots.
I'm not aggressively like, I wasn't looking to pick up Judy from the waiver wire. I'm not running to start Judy in particular. I'm only running to start Njoku, and I'm higher on Chubb than I think most. Tillman is a wait and see for me, if I'm being totally honest. The chances that Tillman catches 2 balls this next game are just too high for me to put that much stock into.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, one other piece that we should, let you be aware of, he is going to be getting a couple of his biggest, a couple of the guys that have been out for a while, which the biggest part of this offense is their offensive line. Their offensive line has been beat up, and the big guys are getting beat up. Pettick, Jarek Wills is going to be out for this game, but they are possibly going to be getting back Jack Conklin. It looks like Ponick will play, so their center will be there. Wyatt Teller is also another guy that might be available as well. So there are a lot of key pieces to this offensive line that are coming back that could really help Jameis moving forward. So we'll wait and see how that goes. I agree, Njoku is a big part of that. I'm not really high on Nick Chubb this week just because of the matchup, even though Ravens haven't been doing great against the running back this year. They are, where are they? They are middle of the road, like 14th against the running back. So not great, but at the end of the day, I just don't feel comfortable with that particular matchup. Maybe he's a low-end flex option in most, in like 14-team leagues. But for me, 12-team league, it's a little bit tough for me to want to start him this week. I'm not starting him this week. I'm playing somebody like Jordan Mason over him or, something like that.
Oh, yeah, in that example. It's also Jerome Ford being out, I think.
Well, that's huge too.
Interesting window of opportunity. If Ford was there, for sure, I'm not.
I forgot to mention Ford.
There's there's some passing kind of upside there, but yeah.
Ford
other than that, like
grace.
Yeah. Look, on the Ravens side, honestly, kind of uninterested. I think it's kind of a negative matchup. It's a low over under. It could be, if it's 45, but in my opinion, there's so many scripts where this game is just less interesting. The Ravens don't need to put up 50 points to win. The game could get slow. Both teams could honestly run each other into the absolute ground, and the Ravens could sit on a 10-point lead in this game could feel like an absolute chasm, even though it's only 10 points. Is there anything super interesting for you on the Ravens, like pass catching side of things? Like, I feel like it's one where like, I'll play Mark Andrews. I don't love him. I don't want to play Bateman. Anybody?
Well, yeah, those were going to be my two guys. I mean, honestly, we saw what happened last week with Mark Andrews on Monday night. He got his 2 touchdowns for 41 yards, 4 for 4 on targets and receptions. So, I mean, honestly, he's not a horrible option. I think he can be a low-end tight end 1 if you need somebody in a pinch. Mm-hmm. There are no buys this week. So, I mean, in most scenarios, you can pretty much throw him out there if you need to and, see how that goes. Rashad Bateman, though, for me, he's starting to look a little bit more like a wide receiver, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3.
A little more consistency to him now. I give you credit for it. It's happened a few games in a row.
And that's where I was going, is that he's averaging roughly about 4 targets a game now. And he did a lot more when Flowers was injured. Now, of course, in this case, he's already playing injured. He saw 4-to-1 targets in this case. Like his target ratio was 4-to-1 in the last game against Tampa Bay. He's been looking real good. He's always been a solid receiver. He's more of an X guy. He's not the slot guy that Zay is, and involved in that part. But he is shifty. He can go deep, and definitely lets Lamar be able to throw that deep ball that he can throw pretty well. I'm not a big Lamar fan overall, but I was impressed with what he did against the Buccaneers. I didn't know this until I looked it up. Bateman's wide receiver 26th right now. So he is crazy, to me.
Right? Injuries. That's how bad injuries have been. That I've had to tell myself, like, I have stopped looking at RB wide receiver. I look at points per game stats only at this point, because everything looks very voodoo-y. But I'm with you.
And I do like this question, Tyler. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And this is a good start-sit question for this particular scenario.
Get to this,
Are you going to be, would you start Dell, Shakir, Coleman, or Bateman in this particular scenario, grouping of people? We had Dell last week give you a goose egg. Shakir hasn't been playing up to his, whole standard. Coleman, I mean, he had a great game last week. He really did.
He's had some weird games, man.
And let's just be very clear here, and I want people to be aware of this. The time, when Coleman was out on the field, it was very rare that Amari Cooper was out at the same time. It was actually misconstrued in the context of Coleman did well because of Amari Cooper. No. Coleman was by himself in most scenarios that Cooper did well. Cooper was on the field and did well when Coleman was on the field with him. So my whole thing is just be aware of that. Just understand that's that scenario. And then, of course, we have Bateman in this particular scenario as well. So who would you, in this particular grouping, go with?
I am unpopular, but I think the Colts have an awful defense, and I think Dell's best friends in real life with his quarterback, and last week was weird. I can't unsee how the first half of the season has gone, but I have every reason to assume that they're going to have to throw it to somebody. The quarterback wants his friend to get the ball. If anything, like, they weren't going to force feed it to the young kid last week and in general over Diggs, but I think Diggs would be perfectly fine, as an adult, being like, all right, hey man, like, Dell, give him a few bones, man. Like, I can see that being part of the game script, so I'm going back to Dell. I can't. Coleman and Bateman are a tier below Dell and Shakir for me, and like their offense and their role in that offense. Agreed. I like the consistent targets that Shakir has been getting. He has some consistency. I like Shakir a touch more than Bateman, I think, but only by a touch, and a lot of it has to do with this matchup. Bateman loses a lot of value to me in matchups where I personally am projecting some of the unders to hit and the offensive projections to be, I'm shading towards the under. I don't think there's enough to go around in some of those scripts for Bateman where I want enough raw targets and snap share. But I like Bateman a lot in these bigger matchups where I think he's going to be a mainstay in the weapon, and in games where there's going to be a high over under, right? If there's a Ravens Detroit matchup, that's where I'm lighting up Bateman a lot because I see him as a massive weapon here.
So who do you like here? Dell?
I'm going Dell here.
Okay. So I'm kind of leaning that way too. So Texans have already faced the Colts this year in week 1. Now, week 1 is a very rough game to go from, to be fair. Week 1 is preseason, week 4, if you really think about it. He was the second in targets with 7 in that particular game. He ended up having 3 catches for 40 yards, which isn't fantastic. It isn't. It really isn't. Shakir and Coleman are a little bit more I want to call them safe in this particular scenario, but with their particular matchup this week, I mean, we're not covering the Bills. They're playing the Seahawks. Seahawks over-under isn't horrible. I do, both games are pretty much at the same point, 46 and 45.5. Right now, it's favoring the Texans by 5. So, I mean, in this case, I might lean Dell too, but I'm a little underwhelmed. It's just hard for me to, his upside is just incredible. That game, if you look at it, the game that they played the first week, Collins had his monster, one of his monster games. I hope they can incorporate that, and maybe find that particular matchup to make it work for Dell. So yeah, I think I'm going to lead Dell, overall. So Tyler, I hope that answered your question. Don't worry, Ravens show. We see all your stuff. We're going to get to it. I promise. I absolutely promise we're going to get to it. So for this, particular game, like I said, it's hard for me to play Bateman unless I'm in a scenario that, absolutely needs it. I am playing Bateman in one of my leagues. I'm going to give full disclosure. I have to, I have very little options. I had a lot of guys go down. I had Rice, Collins, and a few others, that ended up, getting hurt. So I'm in a scenario now where I'm playing Bateman and Hopkins because otherwise I'm playing Demario Davis or, Keon Coleman, and I don't like either of those options. Maybe Demario Davis a little bit, or Demario Douglas a little bit. I'm kind of going between him and Bateman at this point, but that's kind of where they're in that particular tier with one another. So
yeah, I agree.
We'll wait and see. So props wise, for me, it's going to be Derrick Henry higher than 3.5 receiving yards. This guy is, I don't care if I'm wrong on this one, to be quite honest. He can break anything and make it more than it is at any point. So for me, I'm going 3.5 receiving yards. I think he can smash higher.
So we need one target, one catch.
Yeah. It could just be on one catch. So for me, I'm good. Boom. Done.
He's caught a pass every game this year except for 2.
Yeah.
So we've got
any averages, like I don't know his average yardage, but he's pretty much, I think if it's anything, it's over 4.
Yeah, no, we're getting there. 12 on 1, 23 on 1, 10 on 3. So he did finally hit the lower on that one for 4 and then 1 for 13. So yeah, I kind of like it. I feel like
it's
he's
a risk,
a guy
but
that
I don't care.
I think they're always going to want to randomly throw him one. And
always.
I think more often than not, he'll do something with this. So we'll see. You've been good with these kind of niche feelers.
I always love the little ones.
These
I always love the little yardage and going over.
No, I hear you. I like, this is kind of a system play for me. The Ravens offense has just impressed me. We just brought up guys like Andrews looking a little bit better. Maybe there was more injury lingering stuff, right? I like their second tight end's great too. It means they have so many different packages where they're just weapons to throw the ball to, right? Bateman looks good. I mean, playing, he's getting some production, but he also looks good in the field. I think the Ravens are just a passing offense that even with Henry doing his thing, there's enough stuff where I think Lamar can get there consistently. The line right now is at 204.5 passing yards. I think on the year he's only had less than that twice, I believe. So, it's definitely hitting more often than not. And even in this, it's not my favorite offensive matchup. The Browns have an okay defense. I just think you're seldom going to hit 75+% of the time when it's Lamar. Is he going to get more than 205 passing yards? So I'm betting on Lamar on this one. I don't think he beats it by much, but I do think he beats it. It's one that I feel pretty confident in, though, if I'm being honest.
Okay, all right, I like it. I love the confidence. Believe me, it's always needed, especially when I always am confident that all my takes are going to actually pan out. It happens. I hope it does. So in this case, let's move forward to the Tennessee Titans going to Detroit. Detroit is favored by 11.5. Over under is 44.5. I mean, to be quite honest, this game is probably we're not going to talk a ton about this game. It's a very simple concept. Play all your Lions, none of your Titans, except for Tony Pollard. That's all you can really do. Biggest injuries to kind of know about, which there really aren't, other than, Will Levis at this point and his shoulder injury. We won't know more until game time, but it's looking more and more like he won't play. I think he was already ruled out, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't really, full disclosure, I didn't really look to see if he actually did. But the biggest news is Jameis Williams is going to be out for 2 games, so you're going to be missing him this week and week 9 with this 2-game suspension. And, of course, the departure of DeAndre Hopkins going to the Kansas City Chiefs, which is huge. So now that Hopkins is in Kansas City, who do you see being the lead receiver going forward? Is it still Calvin Ridley, really, or could you see others step up and take their place? Guys like, Chig Karakwe or Nick Westbrook-Akine?
No, it's still Ridley here for sure. It's just, is there any upside to the offense? Are they full last
They're going to be behind.
Panthers? Are they, they could, they're vying for the worst offense in the NFL, which is saying something because there's some pretty bad offenses in the NFL. Ridley's to the point to me where it's like, is he like me still trying to force feed Jalen Polk to work? It's like, I like him in Dynasty, but it's probably just not going to get there in redraft right now. Like,
not yet.
You gotta let it ride, right? Calvin Ridley is the player I want it to work, man, and it should. It's the pure volume play. It's like hey, he should get like 12 targets a game.
Oh, yeah.
It should work. None of them are catchable. The only thing they have going for them is they have a decent run game. I don't think there's enough there. In league winning teams where I hit right on my flexes, like, I am actively not trying to play Calvin Ridley. There's plenty of lineups where we know where we're at, where it's like, I'm sure we'll answer a lot of start sits where it's like Ridley will be in the mix. And I'm looking forward to those because I have several of those myself and I'm definitely making decisions on it. So overall, though, I am not big on Ridley. I think that offense is going to be a tire fire. I think it's to the point where it's not about having a wide receiver 1. It's about quarterback throw the ball to somebody open 20 times a game and we'll run it out and we'll just get the season over with at this point, right?
Yeah.
And there's just not enough passing volume. Who's the quarterback? Is it going to be roulette? Yeah, honestly, not a ton to talk about at all. What that offense for some time, nothing startable there for a while. And there's no questions on the Lions, really. I don't think anyone's in contention. You can ask the question, like, who is more valuable now that Jameson's out of the lineup?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, actually.
I don't think I was just going to say, I don't think it changes anything. Realistically, I don't think it does. If anything, I think it slightly makes like it lower. The most significant changes, Goff goes down a little bit in my streaming rankings because it takes away some of those big, deep, long, cheap touchdowns that are often what give a quarterback any semblance of upside. I think like how this affects game scripts is the over under for the next game or two go down. I think they lean just ever so slightly harder on the run game. It ups the the additional touchdown possibilities more to the running game side of things, but it doesn't change much. I think Laporta is still sort of going to be a disappointing tight end. He could pop every now and again, but the offense doesn't work that way.
It hasn't. Yeah. And it was mostly because of Jameson coming out and being a little bit more used. Now, for me, I forgot to mention for the Titans that Tajay Spears, he's questionable as well with a hamstring injury. Will Levis is also, with his shoulder injury. But it's looking like Mason Rudolph is going to be the starter for this one. But back to the Lions, honestly, I see one scenario that might work out here. Keep an eye, maybe throw out one of those waiver wire picks on Khalif Raymond. And I'm only saying that because Khalif is very much involved in the deep game where Jameson used to live. Another guy you can also is Tim Patrick, who is next in line for these particular targets. He's been heavily used in the last few weeks. I don't mind picking up one of the two and kind of just keep him on your bench, see what happens. But I definitely can see that being, one of them being involved a little bit. But of course, this whole offense runs through Monty and Gibbs. So that's the main gist of this. They're going to be fine. It's 11.5, favored. We're going to just skip right by. Props for me. Chigakagwe. Chigakagwo. Sorry. I always get his name wrong. I just used to call him Chig. For me, it's higher than 2.5 receptions. I think that Mason Rudolph has definitely involved him a lot more in this offense that, and deservedly so. He's very good in that particular role. I do think Chick can get more than, I think he can get 3 catches easy. So
I like
I'm
it.
going to go
We're
with
gonna have
that.
to throw it a lot.
Yeah.
We got to throw it to
Simple.
somebody, and Chig should get involved. Oh, we got super chat. You know the rules. You know the
Ooh.
rules.
Oh, I know the rules. We got Nino Pina. What's going on, brother? He goes, send him. Wait,
He had a previous chat as well. So here,
where?
we'll
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
My bad. So just traded for Brees and didn't realize I had Devontae, I guess. Okay, Devontae. So
Yep.
really didn't want to stack and plan on flipping Devontae now. So
That's his nickname. Everyone refers to because he obviously
Tay.
because of receiver, right?
Yeah.
And like a lot of people close to him call him that. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm cool with him too, like that. You know what I mean? I'm all about that game. Look, so the question and Nino, help us out. I'm sure this is a redraft question, but because
I
I'm
need
also
to
a
know.
Dynasty
I always
specialist.
got to know if
Yeah,
it's Dynasty
I
or
make
redraft.
sure.
Just because it kind of changes things just a smidge when it comes to certain questions like that. Because in this case, they're pretty much the same age. They're in different scenarios, contract wise. So no, it's fine. It's fine.
Redraft.
So he says
All right,
redraft,
cool.
so that makes sense.
Yeah, it
So
felt like a redraft question.
So do you send him for either DK or Debo, or aim higher for a guy like Devontae?
Ooh.
That's a tough one. It's tough now because of DK's injury.
Definitely
and
higher than Debo right away.
Yeah, you're gonna
for
have
sure
to.
higher than even with Ayuk out for the season. I'm definitely a little bit worried
For anyone that's had pneumonia, and especially for the fact that he had a really bad scenario in his case, which he almost had dry drowning, which is it is painful. He could be in a situation where it could affect him for the whole season. I would be very, very cautious with Debo moving forward. DK is in a different scenario. It's a little bit more of a shoulder injury, so it's more pain tolerance. He's going to be on the bad side of questionable. Oh no, he's already out. He's doubtful. So for me, I mean, if you really think that DK is healthy enough to get you through the rest of the season and do better than what Devontae Adams could, then yeah. But if not, if you're looking to get rid of him for someone, you got to kind of aim a little higher. Who would you go for in this case?
Yeah, I'm
thinking in my head, you can't go to the top of the ladder. You can't go.
Is this PPR or half PPR?
I'm assuming PPR.
And are you only considering wide receiver? I asked that because, in my opinion, it is easier to flip for different positions than it is the same. Just because most people can look at the same rankings kind of sites, like Fantasy Pros is so popular that everyone kind of can check ECR. And so when you're flipping a wide receiver for a wide receiver, it's hard to get a lot of value, where like you can win better if you're flipping for different positions.
I mean, who would you aim for though? Like Smith or so he goes, I'm currently undefeated in this league, so technically can wait on DK, but yes, PPR. I tried for Puka, and
I was thinking
he's the one who countered with them too. Yeah.
Interesting. My thing with DK is I'd like that DK has this crazy upside case, right? But at the same time, Devontae Adams playing with Aaron Rodgers, there's also a big narrative that like
so high.
Devontae Adams could be like Devontae and Garrett Wilson could very, very easily become Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. You have an aging veteran quarterback, former MVP. Like these are very similar situations, right? Like 100%. I see a world where they're both very productive and the overall passing touchdowns just kind of end up skyrocketing for the Jets because it's just too much damn talent, and Rodgers and him have such a ridiculous connection.
How do you feel
I think you got to aim higher. Like I like the upside.
How do you feel about Drake London?
You're not going to get Drake London. Drake London owners is too high on London finally doing his things. I don't think you're getting Drake London. I'm trying to think if in his situation, Nino, you're undefeated. So you can wait a little bit. You can target someone who's definitely going to hit a little bit later on. I'm thinking, do you go after Nico Collins?
Well, that was going to be my other guy, Nico Collins, Neighbors, but I think Collins is too high now. I think Collins, even though he's been out for the 4 weeks, when he comes back, everyone's going to want him. I don't think he took too much of a.
Would you do it though? Like, do you like that trade to begin with? Even if you could get it done.
I prefer.
I'm that high on Adams, where I'm like, dude.
What about Neighbors or like DJ Moore?
Neighbors owners not giving him up. There's just no way you're getting it done. You're going to get laughed out of the room at that. DJ Moore.
I was thinking Brian Thomas Jr., but that's too low.
I would try for DJ Moore.
Yeah.
I do like DJ Moore, but that's actually a good one. DJ Moore, because some people are still like off the Bears, where I'm like, Caleb's looking pretty good. And
he's looking a lot better than I thought he would.
DJ Moore is Caleb's guy, not Rome.
Yeah.
Like, they have that thing. Yeah, that's a good one. I would try DJ Moore. Nico, I'm almost like Devontae might even be higher than Nico for me. And because you want those extra weeks.
Sorry. It can't happen.
Only because there's so many weeks with Nico. If it's purely waiting till he gets back, Nico's
honestly, at the end of the year, everyone's going to have at least. You always have to factor in two games not playing.
I can't keep fading Nico. Yeah, it's like, dude, go.
It's hard. You can't do it. I'm sorry. Like, it's at the point where Nico Collins is the number one receiver at this point. Oh, well, sorry. Let me put him at 4, because you can't really put him at 1, because JJ and Jamar are definitely up top. You could have some. Conversations about CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill. He's around, and even Amon-Ra. So he's pretty high up there for me. Honestly,
CeeDee Lamb owner's not going to do it. You can't do CeeDee
Lamb. That's why I didn't mention him.
Would you do it for Marvin Harrison?
No. Too low.
Yeah, I think that's too low. I think you're right.
If it was Dynasty, I would, but if it was
Redraft, no, it was straight up. I think we found a good line there. So Nino, obviously, hey, super appreciate the super chat, my guy, and hopefully everyone else. We're going to go as deep as we can. We're going to pull out all the rankings and give you as deep of a dive as we possibly freaking can on these. So you guys are giving us like real life, like if you're going to go send an offer, we're going to go try to put one together for you. So I like going for Nico.
I don't mind going for,
I don't mind
going more. And he's saying appreciate those options. I definitely could try Nico, but maybe even more plus. I don't mind that either. Get another little depth piece that you might need for your team as well. That's always a great option if the guy is willing to, the other manager is willing to go for it.
Jaden Reed had just coming off a slightly disappointing game.
I'm not there yet.
You think Adams just over Reed for sure rest of season right now?
I'd have Adams over Reed, yes.
Yeah, that one's
it's
close. It's close.
It's so well. We're going to talk about that particular game actually in 2 games. I'm going to ask you about Jaden Reed in a little bit more, so don't worry. We're going to get into that conversation shortly. But just let's finish out the Lions here. I had Chig at 2.5. Rasta like to remind me, call him Chig Smith. I thought that was funny. Yeah, there you go. And makes sense. Because I can't pronounce anyone's name unless it's John Smith. So Kendall, what is your particular prop for this game?
I'm a big Jahmyr Gibbs fan. I feel like his numbers are kind of artificially lower just because Monty has been getting a disproportionately large amount of the work. And Gibbs has a historically low explosive play rate right now, which I don't think makes a lot of sense. It's just been, it's going to regress more towards the mean. We saw him the other day do his thing. Touchdowns aside, I'm not talking about his fantasy point production, just from a watch the game standpoint. He was involved in a lot of different spaces and did really, really well with them and did a lot of, chunky 20-yard stuff. So I have him just as a simple higher than 62.5 rushing yards. I think it's a game where they're going to have the ball a lot and they're going to run the ball a lot. And I think Monty's going to do well too, but Monty just coming off the injury, I think Gibbs gets a few more touches. And I think
perfect.
He doesn't need more than 10 touches to get to that number. And I think I project him for way more than that. I project him more for like 14, 15 attempts, and he's an efficient back. So how can you touch the ball 10 to 15 times, minimum 4 yards a carry because it's Jahmyr Gibbs? How are you not, like basic math says you're going to get there more often than not.
100%. So, I mean, just to give you a little bit more confidence in your pick, the last 2 weeks that they've been playing, Gibbs has actually taken over the 60-40 role. They actually were the opposite before that. Well, no. it was only opposite for one game, but he's been primarily the lead back overall, even though Monty has been doing pretty well in a 40, 60-40 split. So overall, I agree. I always enjoy those things. So Perico, I'm sorry that I'm messing up your name. We did see your question. Don't worry.
I think we're just gonna get through a game or two, and then we're gonna come back to it.
We're almost done.
Yeah. For any of the super chats, if you throw us a $1, $2, whatever you can throw us. If you are a Bitcoin millionaire and can throw us more, awesome. we have bills to pay here. We're hopefully trying to just make rent over here. We're just trying to prioritize anyone that has limited time. If they super chat us, we're gonna drop everything and dive super deep. So if you have a really pressing like trade question or something where you might think it might be worth a couple bucks to really go deep dive, definitely let us know. Otherwise, I think we're every 3 to 4 games we're going to stop, answer everyone's questions, clear the board, and then keep on going.
I mean, we're pretty much we have the live Q&A at the very end. So if you're new to the channel, we do our live Q&A at the very end of the show. We're going to break down all the games. We're currently on our 3rd game, if memory serves me right. But we should be flying through the rest of these games as we go. So don't worry. Stay tuned. We're going to get to them as soon as we can. If your question involves something that we're going over at this, particular minute during the game, we'll definitely bring it up. But like Kendall said, we do have super chats on. So if you want us to stop the show and dig right into it, we will. Just throw us a super chat and we'll get to that. So let's move right along to the Colts and the Texans. So the Colts are going to be visiting the Texans in Houston. Texans are favored by 4.5 points. The over-under for this game is 45.5. Injuries for this, just to, be aware of, Jonathan Taylor is coming back from his ankle. He's a full go. He's completely off the injury report. So he will be ready to go for this particular game. Next is Michael Pittman Jr. His back. He's good. So what ended up happening during the week is he did not practice on Wednesday. He got a full practice in on Thursday, and then he went and did not practice on Friday. So everyone got a little freaked out. Right now, they're just managing reps. They're trying to get him in, try to at least get him involved in the game plan to understand what's going on. He is expected to play as of now. He is a 1:00 game. We will keep an eye on it. But from all the reports, barring a setback, he is looking to play. Josh Downs is involved in that too, or not in that particular scenario too, but he should be, banged up, but he's definitely going to play. A lot of people
no snap counts. I mean, Taylor might not get 30 carries, but they're full running him against the Texans with this game.
Oh, for sure. So with Jonathan Taylor back on the field and the offense fairly healthy, do you think this offense looks, how do you think this looks with Anthony Richardson behind the helm? Like, do you think that they can actually do well, overall, or, are you back on your strong Anthony Richardson takes, or are you kind of falling back a little bit?
Well, I'll double down on like my Richardson takes were always, hey, when he rushes, man's lethal, and I like the weapons around him.
100%. Yeah.
Thankfully, we saw some rushing, but the rest of it's just so damn ugly right now. It's difficult to watch. It's hard. Tough defense. I'll put it this way. I'm betting against it until I see it at this point.
Okay.
I want to. It's because he's been banged up. If he wasn't banged up at all, I really just they need to let him run. For him to be super fantasy viable, he just needs to run. I thought he'd be super healthy. Clearly, it just kind of didn't go that way. So unfortunate. Took the L. Again, I'm just very happy that literally I think the week of all of my drafts, my last second take was, why am I drafting this guy in the 5th round when I can just take Jaden in the 9th? And maybe he's 5% worse at worst. And so I pivoted, and I have so much less in redraft. I've got decent amounts of Richardson in Dynasty, and I'm riding till I die. But in redraft, I have almost none of him, and it feels so bad saying that because secretly I'm dude, I'm killing it with Jaden, and I have almost no Richardson, and a bunch of people bought him.
Well, unfortunately, Jaden's going to be out this week most likely, even though
I'm not playing him. That's too risky. But speaking of Anthony Richardson, look, better days ahead. They're going to have to run them later in the season. Just do what you got to do to get it done. I like that their good players are playing. Downs changes that dynamic for them quite a bit. Is going to be good. Texans have a good defense, but I certainly think they're beatable. I hope they're good enough to pressure him into running the ball a little bit. But overall, I'm not betting on the Colts. I'm finding other options other than Downs this week. I think if he's close, like I would start Downs. He's not like off the board. I might find other options, but Downs is definitely startable. 80 Mitchell's for sure not playing. Pittman, I'll play if I have to. I like Pittman more than Downs, but only by like a hair, and I'd prefer not to play either of them until I see this offense do something a little more interesting, I guess, personally. I love Taylor. I think Taylor's going to bring a nice dynamic to that offense that helps, but I probably have to give it a week. That's at least what I see on the Colts side of the ball. I don't know. What about you, or you want to move on to the Texans?
I mean, honestly, this is going to be a tough matchup for Jonathan Taylor right now. The Texans are 4th best against the running back. If you're going to beat them, you're going to beat them through the air. So hopefully Pittman gets a little bit more involved, or they involve Taylor in the passing game a little bit more than they have in the past.
Alec Pierce down at the 1 yard line. Alec Pierce down at the 1 yard line. Taylor.
Yeah. That's kind of hoping. That's kind of my hope at this point.
Maybe we'll get an A-Rich rushing touchdown. Maybe he'll vulture Taylor once in his life.
Maybe a few. But yeah, other than that, it's not much to really talk about with this offense. I'm not a big Anthony Richardson fan overall. I do think in real life he is a below average quarterback that has the ability to rush and get out of the pocket and so on, but his decision making is still questionable. His ability to get the ball downfield, he has a cannon, but it's one of those it's kind of like having a cannon that can you aim it perfectly, but it kind of goes left every time. So it's one of those things where we want to kind of wait and see a little bit more. But now that they have all the pieces of this offense ready to go, this could be a really scary offense moving forward if they can get everything together. I think what I wanted to talk about for the Texans is kind of what we talked about 2 minutes ago about Tank Dell. We saw that, we all thought once Nico Collins went down that, Tank Dell would take command of this particular offense. But honestly, it's been Diggs that has been taking this role over. He's been 11, since Collins went down, Diggs is 11 for 14 receptions on targets, 100 yards and a touchdown. Tank is only 7 of 13 on 57-1 through weeks.
He's getting doubled, basically, or worse.
Or they're just cutting everything out. And, taking
Stroud's getting about 5 fantasy points a game too.
Yeah, well, that's part of it is because they're not involved. Collins is a difference maker that I don't think people understand. I think they're still kind of, he came so quickly into everything with Stroud that I don't think people understood who he was prior to that. He had great stats, great ADOT stats prior to all this, and he was really good. Even with guys like Davis Mills and who he had prior. So honestly, I saw it well ahead of time. I was really happy that I did. But without Collins, he's really only been QB 21. Or sorry, Stroud has been. Right now he's only been QB 21. Last 3 weeks compared, to weeks 1 through 6, he was QB 10. So are we, are we just ranking, Stroud too high at this point? I mean, I see him always as a top 5 quarterback in my mind, but is he really, or am I just really, overthinking this?
So my process is the models. Right. If you kind of want to tail me in kind of how I play fantasy a little bit. No, I instantly move him and like guys like him in his situation down almost categorically in redraft pretty specifically. And it's like a level of discipline where like where are you okay winning and losing, right? Are you okay? Because he's basically Patrick Mahomes right now. He is super talented on an offense that wins through game management, clever playing versus high-end production, efficiency, and defense. Also heavy usage of the running back, right? So they're just the same thing. They don't need to pass the ball a lot. They can get to the red zone by dinking and dunking, and when they do, they can run it in. They manage the game so well that they often don't get in shootouts, so their overall production is hampered by their ability to keep the game so well in hand, right? So these offensive systems that just, I want to see more than 2 or 3 games of it, right? But now we're several games into the season. It looked like right away the Chiefs, you saw the defense was real. Mahomes was talented. They weren't going to need his talent, right? I think that's what we're seeing with CJ Stroud. slightly less talented. I wish I could see more magical plays from him. And in fact, against like the Bills, you saw a lot of actual mistakes. And they're like, oh, okay, well, he came back down to earth in a pretty real way. But the challenge is Mixon is for real. That running scheme is for real with Mixon in it. 125 plus rushing yards a game in some cases is just insane. And their defense is, as advertised, quite good. So in these sort of like game management, he's not just his ADOT's not crazy, right? That was happening with Nico, but without Nico, the deep ball is just not really there. The explosive part of that offense just isn't clicking like they need to. I'm permanently moving him. Basically, I can't get him inside my top 10. And as harsh as that is, there's just other quarterbacks where I think the overall offensive system is always going to elevate them over that type of player. So I like the game script kind of outcomes a little bit more. I think they're more projectable. So yeah, Stroud, not great for me. What it does is it keeps Diggs okay in my models because Diggs still has pretty good, like his value per target's pretty good because of the red zone. Yeah, no, not in love with Stroud.
Okay. No, I get that. I mean, you can definitely see his numbers falling off the cliff after Nico went down. He's had very rare games that he's been over 300 other than when, Collins is there. So it's a little rough until Collins gets back. I think that's going to be the key to it. So let's go into, props for this particular game. For me, it's going to be Joe Mixon higher than 2.5 receptions. As you said, they want to get him involved a lot. He is one of their best pass catchers when it comes to, dink and dunk and, a reliable safety valve, if you will. So for me, I like Joe Mixon at 2.5 receptions for this particular game.
Yep, I like that. I think he's going to be such a big part of the offense. That's pretty nice. I took the other side of that, actually. It looks like we just really like Mixon.
Yeah, I was going to
say. I like higher than 17.5 rushing attempts. I think the Colts are a really nice matchup. I think the Texans have the ability to put a lot of points on teams, and if they're going to do it, it's going to be on a team that makes it really easy to do it. And they're going to do it in a lot of ways, and Mixon is kind of their favorite guy to like, hey, this defense is going to let us do it on them. Let's go do it. So, expecting good things from Mixon.
Nice. I think we both are expecting big things from Mixon. So make sure you guys.
Such a good draft pick, man.
Oh, he was so good. I loved him so much.
You have a lot of Mixon, don't you? Like he's killing it for you this year.
I have him in like 6 different leagues. It's fantastic. So make sure you guys are throwing those questions in the chat. We're going to be getting to live Q&A shortly. We are still moving through. We have three more games to go through, and then we're going to hit you with your questions. So make sure you guys throw them in the chat. If you have a super chat, make sure you guys do that as well, and we'll get to it right away. So let's get into the Packers going to visit the Jags out in Jacksonville. It looks like the Packers are favored by 3.5. Over under for this game is 49.5. Right now, the biggest news is Travis Etienne is currently hurt with his hammy. Game time decision, it looks like. So right now, we have to understand that, hey, he is, he's going to be currently in a situation where it's going to be Tank Bigsby's game. So Tank has really taken control the last few trips since, he's been taking care of this offense since their trip to London. How do you view Tank moving forward as, Travis recovers from his hamstring injury? Do you think he can take over the starting role once he's healthy and make this more of like a David Montgomery and Gibbs scenario?
That's, I think, exactly the comp that I kind of go to, but less efficient on a worse offense. So it's like it's the uglier version of that. It's probably going to look a lot more like a better 50-50 version. Imagine Antonio Gibson was better, right? This is probably going to be more like Rashad White, Bucky Irving, if I'm being honest, where Tank is the Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I was going to say,
carry, that type of a thing. And Travis Etienne is just, he's going to be disappointing. And he's going to be eternally disappointing this year. All formats across the board is what it is. We can cry about it. You're going to start him if you have to. But the real question is, like, if you picked up Bigsby, how aggressive are you going to be? And I'm tempering expectations because I think the offense as a whole just isn't super, super good. But he's definitely flexible. I mean, he passes the eye test. He looks good. He's probably going to at least get a 40% snap share, be explosive on it. Can he get to like that Pollard level where Pollard was really more explosive as a backup to Zeke? No, I don't think he gets to that level. But he'll be good. More of an RB3 than an RB2 for me.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I see him going a little bit more like a 20, 60-40 split, him taking the 60 and, involving Travis Moore in the passing game where he very much excels. So, we'll wait and see how that ends up turning out. But he was really my biggest question overall. We all have seen the rise of Brian Thomas Jr., who's been doing fantastic. You're starting him every week. Evan Ingram, same deal. But right now, I think my other question is, we kind of touched on it a minute ago with that one question. The revolving door at the Packers wide receiver just continues to screw fantasy owners as much as the Patriots running backs, when Bill Belichick was coaching. I mean, last week it was Romeo Doubs took the reins and, he was the target leader, 10 targets, 8 receptions on, 94 yards. Jaden Reed, 2 receptions, 4 targets, and 10 yards was a huge disappointment to anyone that played him. He's incredibly talented, so it's kind of hard to see it. And then even, Dontavian Wicks scored, with 6 targets. With 6 targets, 3 of them being receptions and 48 yards and a touchdown. What do we do with the approach to this offense week to week? How do you have to gauge it?
So I think you can compare it to 2 other teams. This is similar to a Kansas City, and it's similar to a San Francisco. High-end quarterback play, but the real key here is just a lot of mouths to feed, which leads to good production, but it gets spread all over. So it's inconsistent, but the overall offenses are, I want to own pieces on this team, but occasionally they're frustrating. Closer to KC, because honestly, I think Jordan Love is closer to Mahomes in his talent than he is Brock Purdy. I do think Love has elevated in terms of what I've seen on the field. Preseason, I would have thought like they're really, really close. I actually liked Love as sort of a, look, I think that, I thought they were closer, and I think Love is just doing different things right now. But the idea is, earlier in the season, I kind of mentioned that Love as a system play is 1.5. A lot of quarterbacks, most quarterbacks start at 1.5 passing as the higher lower than mark. For some quarterbacks early on, I like to take a stand and say, hey, this is just a bad number for them. By week 6 or 7, it's going to be a bad number and it's going to change. How often will I win until that point? We won every single week until like week 4 or 5 or whatever, where like the money train had to stop on him. But like you look at Vegas, it says the over under on him is 2.5, higher lower than 2.5, I think. Passing touchdowns. Very few quarterbacks have that across the league. And so this is just an offense that's going to put up a lot of passing touchdowns. But with those mouths, it's going to be sporadic, right? What this boils down to, though, in this case, is it's like we don't have a lot of names to talk about because you're still just always starting Reed. It comes down to Christian Watson. Do we really want to talk about him? In my opinion, no. I'm not talking about him until he's worth talking about. He's just not there yet. He's more of a DFS play, but he's too expensive. So it really just comes down to like Dobbs. It's you haven't been starting Dobbs. And earlier in the season, I would have said, no, there's better spots than Dobbs. Great offense, but he's not a big part of it. We called that right. He was averaging maybe like 9 fantasy points a game. All of a sudden, he does the squeaky wheel thing. He has a couple huge games. It looks more consistent. There were 2 things that were big to me. One, multiple touchdowns means you're clearly the big red zone look. That's big in an offense that I just said puts up a lot of passing touchdowns, and he's a red zone weapon, right? And then the second, factor to kind of think of there is he got 10 targets, right? And they were catchable, more first read targets than they were. So going forward, you're always starting Reed, and Dobbs is a high-end flex play for me right now until someone gives me something else to look at. Wicks, honestly, I don't even want to talk about right now.
Yeah.
If he was going to break out, we probably would have seen it right now. More of a best ball play than someone that I want to actively get into my flex. He's going to score some touchdowns. You'll never be able to predict it. His floor is just too good. It's too bad, sorry. We go aggressive for guys like Wicks on the waiver wire, and we don't want to drop Christian Watson because the juice is there. But when the floor is as bad as it is in this case, it's not worth losing your championship. This is the time of year where you need to buy wins to get into the playoffs. If you're already a 5-0, 6-0 team, you already have better options. You're not asking us if you should play them because your team's already that good, and you can stash them in case things change later on. So I think that's how you look at the offense in general. It's really just, do I or do I not start Dobbs? The answer right now is high-end flex if you're asking me. I like it. It's fundamentally changed from earlier in the season. And I like Tucker Kraft a lot. I like him over, basically, the line is like Evan Ingram. Any tight end lower than like Evan Ingram, David Njoku. I'm going with Kraft over everyone else. And I'm probably going with Kraft over Sam Laporta right now. and I'm almost Kelsey. Like I honestly think that he's going to be more involved in the offense. Right now, I'm still starting Kelsey above him. Kraft versus Kincaid. I like Kraft over Kincaid at that standpoint.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So let's move on to our props. For me, the biggest one is I'm kind of going off of the Houston Texans and, sticking with the running back here. And Josh Jacobs higher than 2.5 receptions. I think he can smash this without a problem. He's definitely involved in the passing game. So a couple dump offs, 3 of them he can definitely do without a problem. I like this. And I think you like Josh Jacobs in this matchup too.
Smash spot, should have amazing opportunities. The Jacksonville Jaguars don't have a defense of any kind. 49.5 over under.
We'll be getting full Luakan. He will be back this week.
Vegas says that the Packers are going to put some points on the Jaguars.
Yeah. For sure.
Jaguars have shown it. Yeah, I'm all on Jacobs, so I like him higher than 65.5 rushing yards.
I like it. I like that one a lot. All in on Jacobs. I like it.
All right, two more to get through.
2 more games. We got the Cardinals versus the Dolphins. Dolphins are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under for this game is 46.5 points. The biggest news, which is I'm so happy that this is actually happening. Tua Tagovailoa is cleared of concussion protocol. He will be active for this game, so he is back. The Dolphins are back. Oh, thank God. Can't stand seeing Snoop Huntley out there anymore. I'm sorry. I know he went to injured reserve today. I hope he gets better, but I couldn't watch that dumpster fire anymore. Tyreek Hill finally gets his, QB back. Tyreek Hill popped up on the injury report as well with a foot injury. But honestly, in my personal opinion, I don't think he misses this game. I think he wants to get back to playing with a competent quarterback. And I think he wants to be involved and just blow the doors off everything. Sean Murphy Bunting is going to be out for the Cardinals as well. So that's a big, big loss for their secondary. So I am smashing overs on Tyreek and Waddle in any shape, way, or form, just because they're going to want to throw it all over the yard at this point. So that's kind of where we're going to lean right into. Tua coming back. Do you think this offense goes back to that high-powered, throw the ball over the yard, old Tua and Tyreek offense?
Unprecedented situation. I'm a guy that likes to combine historical research with recent trends with my own gut. I like to combine resources and kind of figure out what's the underlying cause that I believe in is the most leading to the causality, and hopefully that's my edge. In this case, I got nothing to go on. So I don't think I can give anybody any sort of advice other than like telling a buddy, here's what I think is going to happen. And I think they're going to probably play pretty cautious, and it's not going to look great for a little bit. That's just my opinion. I love for them to come out gunslinging. I
hope so.
I think there's going to be some skittishness personally. Hopefully I'm proven wrong. I guess I like HN. I think they're going to be doing a lot of dump offs to get the ball out of his hands quick. So I think a lot of slants open up. I think that probably helps Waddle a lot because the slant game he's pretty good. And I think that's good for Devin HN. That's the only thing I can take away. And I don't know, is Jonnu still a thing with the new quarterback who might be able to actually target the real weapons on the offense? Who knows? I'm just in a wait and see. I'm starting who you have to start. Waddle is still a low-end flex. He's viable. I don't love it yet, but if you drafted him, you're probably playing him.
I like it better than I did with Snoop Huntley, I'll tell you that much.
We'll get to that in some start sits for sure. I feel like I don't want to go through the gamut. I'll let some people ask, but I have that in a couple spots, and we'll see. But Tyreek's a must start, and I don't know. The Cardinals side of things. Is there anything really worth? I feel like you're starting who you're starting. The big question is just Marv, right? Do you see anything else big worth talking about there?
I mean, beyond his particular scenario, I mean, he's 29th in wide receiver targets. He's 54 in receptions. 7th in touchdowns, which is crazy to see those numbers overall. He's wide receiver 31. You drafted this guy wanting to be your wide receiver one. So it's been a little disappointing so far overall. He is a very talented receiver. It's just for some reason they're not able to unlock him. And I don't know why. Kyler Murray seemed to have a decent rapport with him. So hopefully that can change. But how do you feel about it moving forward? Is he someone you're playing every week, or is he someone that, you can kind of go, I got someone better. I got somebody better.
I'm not going like he's not a rest of season guy for me. He's generally, there's two things I'm looking at with him. I'm looking to play. One, I'm taking it week to week. I'm actually looking at what's the tail behind the snaps, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to just box score check him. You got to do your homework when you're analyzing a guy like Marv
Oh,
and making
100%.
a decision. So I don't have him a lot in redraft. I thought where he went in redraft was suicidal. The cost was just obscene. Like, he's a rookie wide receiver. Why is he going in the second round? It like he was. I think I said multiple times, he's the worst pick in the second round. Just it doesn't belong there. But it shouldn't have been drafted in the third round either. If I'm being real, like, he didn't belong until the fourth round.
Did not believe in the second and third.
Yeah,
sorry, first and second. Like, they did not believe.
As a rookie, it made absolutely no sense. So that being aside, I'm saying I just don't have to worry about it a lot because I didn't draft him anywhere. But if you're that guy, you're asking kind of stuff what to do. I'm taking it week by week. I want to see how it is. Right now, for me, he's a low end flex. I want to find another option. He's gonna hit at some point, but I need to see it once beforehand because it could be some rough games in between. That's kind of personally where I'm at. I feel like I'm lower than most people. I'm willing to go with another option. This week, as my one example, I am starting Rachaad White in that three-headed mess over him.
No, well, yeah, it might be even a two-headed mess at this point. Would you play Harris or would you play Harrison or Wan'Dale Robinson?
PPR?
Yeah.
PPR Wan'Dale, half PPR Harrison.
Brian Thomas Jr.
BTJ, I have him as like literally a wide receiver one rest of season. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to JSN.
This week, JSN.
This week, I was
DK doubtful. Yeah. In general, that's really a great line. Is JSN with DK? Where do you go? Yeah. I have been follow the targets, follow the offense, and that's been JSN. And I would have been right most of those weeks. That's what I've been doing in my own lineups.
Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed for sure. Okay. Again, I'm pretty low on Marv, man. I'm starting Mooney over him.
Okay, I was gonna
kind of an example.
I was gonna go low and see how low you went. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Zay Flowers, even if he's hurt.
Oh no, I love Zay. I think Zay is so good in that offense. So yeah, Marv, because I feel like with Marv, unlike with like more older players, with Marv, I think once we see it, we're going to start seeing it with some consistency. Like, this is just being a dynasty guy. That's what happens with these rookie wide receivers. I think his good games were more blips on the map, if anything. Like, because of the type of wide receiver he is, he's more like Rome. He doesn't have the crazy separation that Neighbors does. Right, he can win all the he can do a lot of things. I'm not saying he's not those things, but at the NFL, everyone's really good at a lot of things. The margin of in order to just win consistently at the NFL level, you have to be elite on top of elite. And I'm just saying, with guys like him, it takes timing with your quarterback, which obviously hasn't been good for almost anybody on the team. Trey McBride has kind of been the most disappointing top 5 tight end. Michael Wilson hasn't really been there. So I don't want to go on and on about this. It's just one of those ecosystems where when we see, Kyler and him have their thing, you're going to see it with some consistency. You see that with rookies. You just haven't seen it yet. It's common. His big blow-up games early were nice to have, but don't freak out quite yet, I guess, is the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not playing him this week if I can avoid it.
Okay. So one of my props for this particular game is Jalen Waddle, higher than 4 receptions. Like we said before, I think his underneath routes and his slants can be heavily involved in this particular type of matchup.
Yeah,
I definitely think it is, something that they can take advantage of, especially with Tua coming back. Quick throws out, just keep him upright. They're going to have to play real quick and get him involved a lot more. Miami being favored by 4.5 is a huge telling sign that they're going to try to just, keep the pedal down and do the best they can to keep him upright. So for me, I'm going to go with Waddle at higher than 4.5 or 4 receptions.
Nice. I'm going with a stat that it's similar to what you've been betting a lot. I think that they're going to need a check down option for him often, and I think they're going to make that happen with Devin Achane. So I'm just going Achane higher than 29.5 receiving yards.
Oh, I
can't predict how and where Mostert's going to get involved with the carries or anything like that. It's just the one thing I felt like I could bet on with this game was I think I like Achane and his involvement. And I think his involvement is going to shade towards the passing game. to help and protect Tua. It's also a strength of his already that I think they have featured multiple times already. And this probably is just a low line. This is a super easy line. If Mostert's injured, this line is going to be a lot higher.
Oh, yeah.
I just think Mostert being healthy, he's going to be there, but he's not taking away these types of touches. That's kind of where I think there's an edge here.
Okay, fair enough. I like it. I like it a lot. I think Achane can definitely be heavily used to keep a little bit of pressure off of Tua. So definitely can see that happening. So let's move on to the last game of the slate that we're going to be talking about. Remember, stay tuned. We're going to be handing you guys right over to Phil and Rasta. They're going to talk about the rest of the games moving forward. So basically, I think one more 1 o'clock game and the rest of the 4 o'clocks and 8 o'clock and Monday Night Football with the Giants against the Steelers. So make sure you guys check them out after us. Please throw your questions in the chat. We're going to get to the live Q&A right after this. So make sure for those that are listening that have any questions, throw them in. We'll get to them. And if you have a super, you want to throw a super chat, we got that as well. So first and foremost, Jets are 7-point favorites heading out to New England to face the Patriots. Over under for this game is 41.5. Injuries, notable injuries for all those that need it. Allen Lazard is going to be out. He's been doubtful. He didn't practice all week. He has a chest injury. He's not playing. Jalen Polk is still dealing with a concussion. He is still in concussion protocol.
I think he was just listed as out.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah, no, he was. I wrote this early. I wrote this a little earlier, so I didn't get to add the out. But yeah, he is out for this game, so don't worry. Don't play him. Some players that I kind of wanted to bring up are, Hunter Henry. Is he a weekly tight end start for you?
Yeah, like him a lot. He's almost like he's close to that like Ferguson
more than the Laporta,
except he's targeted more. Right now, dude, it's crazy to say, but yeah, look, I mean,
go with the trend.
Drake May hasn't looked bad. He's put up offensive passing touchdowns. As a tight end, what do you need? A quarterback that at least throws touchdowns and an offense that has touchdowns to get thrown. Yeah. It's an ambiguous core, so there might be more to the tight end. And he's already seen elevated targets. It's not like he's doing Mark Andrews 2 touchdowns on 4 targets. He's getting 8-9 targets on a consistent basis, where the should-be wide receiver 1 is knocked out, going to keep him off the field. The other wide receiver 1s are wide receiver 3s on most team. I mean, it stacks up well for him. And how we'd often start all the tight ends for Russell Wilson offense. I see him that way. I like him a lot. I'm starting him in plenty of spots. Again, if you draft an early tight end, it is what it is. If I really came down to it, it's hard. How do you play him over Sam Laporta, right? Like, how do you do it? If you have Laporta, you're probably just crying inside and not going to do it. But there are some I would start him over. Kincaid's starting to play better, but Kincaid was one that was kind of on the cusp for me. But there's a lot of these other like middling guys where I'm just
Pat Freiermuth.
With the rust before the rust change, no. With the rust change, give me one more game. Right now, I would play him over Pat, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pat moves up over him with that Russ offense that looks much better. That one's close right now. Yeah, definitely him. Basically, it's like Jake Ferguson is kind of close because the Cowboys are back. Right now, honestly, I like him over Jake Ferguson. That's where it's like, that's my spicy take, is I would play him over Ferguson because I do think they're going to have to score some points in this offense. This seems like a good tight end matchup.
So the other part of this offense that I wanted to talk about was Demario Douglas. How are you feeling about him? I know he had a really good game, then he had a really crappy game because of an illness and nausea and all that stuff. So he was barely on the field. But how do you see him moving forward now? Hopefully, he's definitely healthy at this point. Hopefully, how do you feel about him moving forward?
Good, not great. I'm usually a fan of I like the rookies because I like but their upside is like real. Yeah. What I don't love about him is his upside is an okay flex play. Yeah. His upside never gets to what I might consider a high-end flex play, really worth rearranging and getting a spicier take on. It's a guy where if you told me he was guaranteed 9 targets and I still am not sure if I want to play him, that kind of is your indication that the upside just isn't there. This is a startable week for him, Polk out, but you're asking me a rest of season question, which is kind of what this boils down to. Man, it's game by game. We're gonna have to reevaluate this game by game. Ideally,
guess,
Polk comes back from the concussion, gets involved, and then there's the too many mouth syndrome, and we'll see if anyone can emerge. But right now, he's more of a bench stash than an actual like playable piece for me right now. But in a pinch, in a game script that should be negative, the Jets are favored by a full touchdown. He should get volume with a quarterback that can at least get him in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean the hard part for me is the matchup against Gardner.
Yeah, it's not a great matchup. That's why I like the tight end in this matchup is because
I like
if Sauce shuts down the wide receiver, maybe tight end's the only place left to go, and then Ramondre should be good.
The hard part about I think Ramondre is the better play in this game. If you're going Patriots, the hard thing for me is if you have Sauce on Douglas, what will happen is that CJ Mosley will cover Hunter, and I think that's a favorable matchup for them, for the Jets in this case. So it's one of those things where you got to just kind of, stay open for it. I do like DeMario as, a volume guy, but he's averaging 5 targets a game. And if he's averaging only 5, that's not great. He's gotten 9 in a few different scenarios here and there, but when at the end of the day you're only averaging 5, that's not a great sign.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets defense was legitimately like hurting people last year. They got some vibes, right? Things are feeling in the right direction. Like, it also wouldn't surprise me if this was one of those guys. The Patriots are 1-6, are kind of awful. We always thought their roster as a whole was kind of bad, and they still have a rookie quarterback, a rookie with some moxie, a rookie that I in particular like.
Yeah, you like him, yeah.
Still a rookie against a really damn good defense on paper. And I think he might get the shit kicked out of him. And there's a chance that like the Jets as a defense puts up one of those 30 points from a defense. They had how many touchdowns?
Yeah.
That's within the range of outcomes here. So yeah, we're not firing up too many of the Patriots.
I'm going to go off of that particular take and actually give you my prop. My prop for this is Drake May lower than 242 passing yards passing combined and rushing. I combined them both. He ain't getting anything close to that, in my opinion. I think that the Jets are, and I very rarely go lower. In this case, I can't see a world where the Jets don't hold him to less than 242 yards altogether. So yeah, I'm going to go with that.
If he hits that, it's because there was like a 45-yard touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. That gets you over by a yard. Going into the waning moments of that game, I don't see a way.
That or the whole offense being sick, 2 minutes, or the defense being sick prior to the game. No.
Yeah. And interesting enough, that's one of those weird bets where I'd be like, if it gives me if I can cash out for 85% of my winnings in the fourth quarter, I probably would. I like this to be a panted get right game for the Jets for many, many reasons. I won't go into them, but just the one thing I'll frame is keep in mind, I thought that this is a team that should resemble a team with a quarterback that changed teams, basically a rookie. See, like cancel last year for him and say, hey, this is the first year Rodgers is there doing the thing. If you act that way, that team archetype should struggle with its identity early. Its star players should have some shaky games because new quarterback ecosystem, how do they function? And as they progress, the studs and talent should emerge as the chemistry gets better, ideally. Mm-hmm. Usually coaching plays a huge role in that. In this case, that was what put them really behind in the curve. But generally, you'd say, hey, this is a team that's starting to get right at the right time, and all the vibes are looking up, and they just added Devontae freaking Adams. That is going to be a boost to everybody. As an NFL player,
not on a short week either.
Fantasy, Devontae is not super beloved in the fantasy community anymore because a lot of us play Dynasty. He's older. He's going to be moving down in rankings. It is what it is. In the actual NFL, going to work with Devontae Adams is going to work with Devontae Adams. That affects the defense. That affects the special teams. Guys are excited to play football again for the dude Devontae. If you're on that team and you're we got Devontae with Rodgers, and you're in the NFL, which means you've watched every snap of all their games. You're a super fan. We think we're super fans. Imagine being in the NFL, right? That team has got to be thinking we doing this thing, right? Let's go beat the shit out of these guys, right? That's what they have to be thinking. So yeah, with that, my props Rodgers higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. It just feels like a spot where they're going to let him throw it in the red zone. Yeah. He's going to try to get all of his guys involved. Maybe the rushing touchdown is actually a passing touchdown to Brees, right? And I think they try to get each of his guys a touchdown. So I just think it's one of those spots where I like it over there.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, boys and girls, we are now moving on to our live Q&A sponsored by our good friends over at TrophySmack.com. Make sure you guys check out their awesome trophies and other things like their belt, their rings. I mean, like I said, they're customizable trophies. Make sure you guys check out all their stuff at TrophySmack.com. Make sure you guys use promo code GETRIGHT at checkout, and they will help you out. All right, live Q&A it is. So let's start at the very top. Raven Show, I hope you're still joining us. He goes full PPR, flex 1. Debo versus the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Kareem Hunt versus the Raiders on Sunday at 4 o'clock. Or Pickens versus the Giants on Monday Night Football. Can you rank them as well? Because I might need to play 2 if Tyreek is ruled out. Smart. It's always good to have a second situation. I did that prior with Deontay. You always want to have a scenario. And for those that are listening, Deontay Johnson is out. So, yes, in this case, how would we rank these 3 guys currently in their scenarios? I think Kareem Hunt is the staple. I think he is the one guy that we're both going to agree on.
Yes. Yeah, Kareem is my 1 here. Amazing plus matchup. They're literally giving him 25 touches a game. He's mixing light. You got to look at him as like
100%.
He's less of a name than the other guys, but his production has been unreal, and he plays in the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
All the things, all the reasons. Yeah. He's
now,
one.
this is the harder one for me.
The second one, yeah.
Is Debo and the Cowboys. If Debo was healthy, this wouldn't be a question. But since he's a little banged up, he's going to be questionable. That is Sunday Night Football, to be fair. So if he is on the bad side of questionable, he's not playing. And it's very questionable, to be fair. Pickens is healthy. I don't like saying I would never in any world tell you to go Pickens over Debo. Unfortunately, this is the week I would. You will know about Tyreek at 1 o'clock, so you're lucky enough to know ahead of time what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill. So I'm going to be playing Tyreek Hill over Pickens without thinking about it. But if you're going to have to give me a second, if I'm giving you a second option, it's Pickens.
Yeah. Pickens here. Like it, 2 philosophies I'm using. One is like they're not far enough apart that you should take the risk of the guy with pneumonia is banged up, all sorts of nastiness going on. Like there's just too many risks you're taking that are unnecessary. Yeah. Even if you thought like let's put some hard numbers. Let's say objectively,
and it's a good matchup for him too. It's just
it really is. It's like give him a point and a half a game over Pickens. I'm still running Pickens, I think, because I just don't want the horrible case scenario. Second, honestly, Pickens looked great under Russ. That we wanted to like, hey, was a quarterback change going to be significant? Yeah, it was significant for Pickens. Like he was the number 1 player that benefited. The balls were deep. They looked good. Pickens looked good doing it. Everything about it said like, why the hell aren't we going to do this thing with Pickens more often? It's the one thing that worked. It's the most points they've scored in like 10 years. And no offense, but the Giants defense is, we'll call them beatable because I want you to be nice to my Bears when they come up in takes later on. They're not the world's greatest. They're beatable. No. They're not horrible. They're beatable. So yeah, this is not the spot for Debo. And sometimes there's like these sneaky spots where it's like no one else is there. Debo should smash. It's like actually Debo is the type of guy for me where you don't want him to be the guy that gets all the targets and all the carries and all the everything. You actually want him around other competition because he can be a schemed up mismatch. I don't want him. I think he suffers without Ayuk in the lineup.
Slightly.
Yeah. Like I still think he's going to be good, but like I love Pearsall this week. I feel like the overall offense is down. Like Pearsall, Kittle to the moon this week.
We haven't been able to talk about it, but because it's not in this grouping that we did. Make sure you guys stay tuned and listen to the 2 Niners fans that are going to talk up Ricky Purcell for sure. I mean, honestly, he's one of my favorite options with Johan Jennings out. as well. He's going to be one of the lead receivers for this team. They made him, he was pretty much drafted to be Ayuk's replacement, to be quite honest.
I mean, that was the plan, and now they're going right back to it, you know?
And honestly, it's a good spot. The other thing I want people to be aware of, it's a small thing. This is tight end week. This is that week that you're playing your tight end. This is tight end appreciation week. I'm telling you now, watch the tight ends go off. Watch guys like Kittle, Laporta, a few other guys. They're going to have a game. Load them up with confidence. I think it's going to be a fun week overall. But yeah, I think in this case, I think we can agree Hunt and Pickens, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But
yeah,
Tyreek
with heavy confidence. Yeah.
So Luke T, what's going on, Luke? Great to have you here. If you guys haven't already and you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you guys like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, to this guy's YouTube channel as well, the Fantasy Football Tavern. We'll go over a lot more of those near the end of the show. I want to get to your questions first. So would you trade Deontay Johnson and Wicks for DK Metcalf? A simple yes. And honestly, I love Deontay Johnson. So for me, it's saying a lot. I'm not going to lie.
I could go into all my reasons, but it's just, just go
It's
do it. It's good.
quick,
It's good by enough that you don't even need just yes.
It's a quick yes, because, it is honestly an easy question for me. Ravens show, always a pleasure. Let us know if you have any other questions. We are here for you. So Daniel Caps, what's going on? Hopefully you're still listening to us. If not, don't worry. Make sure you guys check back and watch at the end. We will have the timestamps in there. So just take a look at live Q&A and we'll answer your question. That's one way to do it as well. So Daniel Caps goes, need 2 running backs and a flex, full PPR. Achane, Mason, Monty, White, Ramondre, Pollard. Jesus Christ. How many teams is this? Tolbert, Kirk, and McBride starting Bowers. Okay, so we're looking to do 3 guys here. Who are you picking?
Achane and Monty.
Right?
It's between Mason and Monty.
I was going to lean Mason just because of the matchup. Dallas is banged up right now. Micah Parsons won't be playing in this. DeMarcus Lawrence is out as well.
It's between them and Mason. I'm so confident Monty gets in the end zone or has a good game. Rashad White's too streaky for me. I mean, he's got a great spot with the offense banged up. Ramondre, I hate the matchup. I don't love that. Pollard, I love Pollard's close for me. It's like Pollard, Mason, Monty are close, but man, that matchup is just such a nightmare for the upside's not there for Pollard. If Pollard doesn't get in the end zone, it's like he might have 24 carries for 74 yards. It's just not enough for me. Monty's touching upside, so that wins for me. It's like Mason versus Monty. Monty feels safer. Mason feels like the upside play. That's just like a full breakdown. Achane easily in. Monty and Mason, it's kind of a coin flip for me. I'm worried that with all the injuries, like what if it's just a really bad ecosystem for the 49ers in general, and the overall offense is just kind of has an off night because of it? Like they're able to stack the box because they're saying, hey, we're going to make you beat us this way, and we'll see if he can. And honestly, Mason might say, yeah, watch me, and he will do it.
Here's my thing. Achane for sure. Throw him in. Yeah. He's done. Mason, I like a lot more. Monty, I'm a little bit lower on, and the only reason being is that Tennessee Titans defense. Tennessee Titans are actually really good against the run. Jeffrey Simmons is probably one of the best, if not the best, nose tackle in the game, other than Dexter Lawrence, of course. But at the end of the day, he is a run stuffer. He can stop the game cold. Him and Vita Vea are 2 of the top defensive tackles in this league, other than Dexter.
I just think they're going to get tired. I think there's an opportunity for them to be like, how many more times do you want me to stop him? Like, there's just so many.
No, understood.
But I get you. That's a good tiebreaker. I'd probably go Mason because of that. That's a really good. I think that's a sharp.
Dallas is 29th.
The matchup in particular says like Detroit should win
the run.
a million different ways, but I'm on Gibbs because I think they might realize that Monty's walking into a brick wall.
That's different.
We have Gibbs right there. We could just
See, I like Gibbs a little more in that matchup just because he's an outside runner, which is staying away from Jeffrey Simmons.
You're running away from their strength. Yeah,
but Monty is a downhill runner. He's not an outside guy. He is
Monty just enough to keep him honest, and that's it. Yeah,
exactly. So for me, it's Achane, Mason, And right now, it's really tough for me. It's between White and McBride because I do like that matchup for them as well. I think I'm going to lean White just because of guaranteed touch in this particular case in the flex option, especially in full PPR. He will be involved in the passing game, as we saw last week. I'm going to go with White, A-Chain, and Mason for my picks.
Yeah, for me, it's between White next and McBride. I think I like White over Pollard because there's more upside, and I do think he gets involved in the passing game. Again, that's particularly why I like it. It's between White or McBride. It just feels so gross to take White. Like I've been voting against White. I've been saying like, look,
well, they're saying that Bucky's a game time decision too. He's not guaranteed to play either, and if he's playing, he's hurt. They said that he could be playing, barring a setback. But how can I trust that? To be fair,
no, it's fair. It's like with White though, the whole
and they were both good involved.
Yeah,
so
it's does White get 5, 6, 7 passes? I mean, he should, because who else are they going to pass it to?
Definitely, yeah.
I don't know. Call it vibes. I just have vibes that it feels like one of those games where White should be chalk, and I just don't see it happening. And I actually like McBride a little bit better in this spot, but it's close. I'm going with McBride over White just because I feel like being anti-White. I want so bad for White to not be good.
Heard that. Did you hear that
in the background?
Yeah. Did you guys hear a loud scream? I hope everyone heard a loud scream. My wife just screamed at the Yankee game, so don't worry. Everything's okay.
By the way, Daniel Kips, you're going to win your league, though. Congratulations. Bauer and McBride. Like, Bowers and McBride. Like, you have two viable you have the tight end 1, I think the tight end 5, where most people drafted a very disappointing tight end. So,
you are doing quite well.
I guess have you heard from Roster? Are they going right at 11, or do we need to extend?
I haven't heard anything yet, but that doesn't mean anything yet. So we'll wait and see.
If we got to go, I want to make sure we get them all in. If I got to go like 10-second takes,
Yeah, we will. So the Smitty, what's going on, brother? Great to see you here. You go start the 49ers defense or the Chargers defense. I'm playing the Chargers in a few spots.
Yeah, I like the Chargers. 49ers more talented, but worse matchup. I think the Chargers have a better chance at really doing some damage.
I think they can do a ton of damage. So I'm playing the Chargers in a few leagues. Really like that matchup. So going to Perico, what's going on, brother? Great. I hope you're staying around. I hope you've been around. He goes trade Mahomes plus Brees or Kyron for Jaden Daniels. Pollard and Jalen Daniels, Pollard, and Neighbors. Okay. Redraft Superflex. Wide receiver 1 now is Jefferson, and other quarterbacks are A-Rich and Jameson Winston. And I'm 2-5. Wow. Can't decide which running back to trade. I would trade Brees over Kyron at this point.
I would trade away Brees, keep Kyron. Yeah. If you're telling me I could trade away Mahomes and Kyron and get back Jaden, Pollard, and Neighbors. Yeah, I'm definitely doing that. What it comes down to is Jaden is an upgrade over Mahomes, in my opinion, rest of season. I don't think that's really in question, but if it was, it's not super close for me. Yeah, you're downgrading to Pollard, but if you just forget Pollard's name exists and just say, Neighbors in PPR over Brees and Kyron, it's really 100%. Close already. That's how much I'm in on Neighbors. And so because you get a very starter worthy thing in Pollard, it's one of those that doesn't make sense for every roster, right?
But it could
in this particular situation, unless you just couldn't use Neighbors. The chances that and I would be Brees. Kyron is tough because I think Kyron's going to be amazing. I like Brees. I like Kyron better rest of season. I would do this. I would do this to have Neighbors as upside. Neighbors rest of season, I really think could be better than those guys.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Fantasy Sizzling, what's going on? He says, I got 3 questions. We'll try to answer them as good as we can. I appreciate it. No problem. He goes, Najee or McMillan in the flex full PPR?
McMillan.
I'm going to go with Najee here. I'm struggling with Richardson. I like it with full PPR and against the Giants. Giants are a little bit rough against the running back, 17th overall. I like the volume.
What's Warren's status this game?
Who? He's probably active.
Spicy take. Give me McMillan. With
Okay.
I was waiting like as soon as Warren was active, I was
Pitt
gonna
at
start
6.
fading
You
Najee.
know, Pitt is favored by 6. I like Najee a little bit more. So struggling with Richardson or May, 4-point passing touchdown, 6-point rushing touchdown.
Ooh,
I'm
I
gonna
go
go.
Richardson. May has just such a nightmare
It's
matchup
so
for
hard.
like
Yeah.
just from all angles. It's bad. Richardson actually
Both
has
are.
some opportunity, and that's the format you want Richardson in, right? Like he can do it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been ugly, but Richardson actually has some upside. May does not have upside this game.
Not in that one, no. And then last but not least, would you rather have rostered
Evan Ingram, or
Evan
Cade
Ingram or
Otton?
it's Evan Ingram, and
Yeah.
it's not even
No,
close.
no offense to respect on
I
Cade
love
Otton's
Cade
name.
Otton, I really do.
Dude, do I love Cade Otton.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evan Ingram is just a different caliber of player that like the offense was struggling and the team was like, oh, dude, we can pass the ball to him like 10 times. Like that level of that doesn't happen with other players, let alone tight ends. Yeah, Ingram's elite, man. Ingram might be Ingram's probably a top 5 tight end.
Oh, he's definitely a top 5 tight end, even though he missed the 4 games. Sebastian, great to have you here. He goes, would you trade Purdy and Tank Dell for Love and Jameson Williams? I would not.
I think I would because I like Love over Purdy.
I like Purdy.
I think Purdy at the Ayuk injury, I think really hurts Purdy. And that like if it goes wrong, it goes like heavily wrong in a way where Purdy's upside of these big games. If Purdy just becomes serviceable and loses like elite upside, that's a big deal. Where like Love, forget the wide receivers for me. Like I think Love could be ridiculous rest of season. Like he could finish as a top 3 quarterback on passing volume alone. And he's got legs too. Like he's got the total package. And
so does Purdy. No. Let's be fair. Purdy is the runner compared to
Purdy's definitely the runner. I'm saying like Love still has the ability to like rush in a couple of touchdowns. It's like it's not like the craziest, but like he has all the makings of like Love could be the reason you win your league. Where Jameson Williams and Tank Dell, for me, it's like, look, give or take. I just like the idea that Dell, when he's supposed to be working, isn't. And he's only going to get worse when Nico comes back. So, like, who do I want for my playoff run? I think I want Jameson Williams in my playoff run more than I want Tank Dell because I think the way that Detroit wins games is by scoring 50 points without Aiden Hutchinson there, right?
No, I get that. And I agree with the Jameson side of that for sure. But I like the Purdy side of it on the other end. So it's one of those things where I'd rather have Purdy, but I rather have Jameson Williams. So we have a few minutes just waiting on Phil. But we have, Brock Purdy's at QB8 currently on the season. Love on QB12. I understand he missed a couple games. But overall, man, I am pretty good with Purdy in this. It's just the hard part is for Tank Dell. I like Jameson Williams a lot, but I don't think I would do it for Love, to be honest. He goes, Tank Dell really doesn't really start for me. He might be a flex option, but I usually start Kyron, Brian Robinson, and Dobbins in the flex. So if he's just a bench option and you're trying to move him along for Jameson, I get it. I think it's a good trade. I prefer Purdy overall. That's just me, though.
I think it's a fair trade. It's
a fair trade for sure.
How confident you are if we're looking at it in terms of like, are we getting value? Is there something to take advantage on? It's really, I think, a neutral enough trade. Like most people would probably say that like Tank Dell right now might be slightly more valuable than Jameson Williams in the trade market, or is Jameson Williams just straight up bet? I changed my Jameson Williams. People in redraft market are pretty brutal when someone has been as poor as Tank for this long.
Yeah.
JMO hasn't. So Jameson is more valuable in the trade market. I think Jordan Love is objectively more valuable in the trade market than Purdy. Just from a trade market, not we have our own takes, but I mean,
he's
like
higher value
in the market, he's coming off of like these huge games, 4 touchdowns.
It's essentially Purdy.
And he didn't just lose his wide receiver 1. You know what I mean? From a trade market standpoint. So I think, if anything, what I'm convincing myself into is like, I think you could maybe get more for Love than what you're getting back. Maybe if I were to give you anything, it's like I would throw a few more offers out for Love because there's going to be, if I'm this high on Love, right? Like Classic is not as high on Love as I am, right?
No.
Is there a
Not even
chance there's
close.
somebody like me in your league or even crazier that's like, dude, Love is Love, or Packers fans are crazy,
Well,
right?
I mean, the guy that owns him must be, at this point. But what you're trying to do is find what the owner of Love and Jameson Williams needs the most, and you're trying to find a way to make it work. Maybe you're packaging,
Oh yeah, because he's trading away Purdy. So
maybe
the
you're
Love thing-
packaging Dobbins and Tank Dell and trying for something else, but for Love himself, and that's
Oh
it.
yeah, well,
But it's
I
based
got
on
to change
your
my arguments.
scenario.
Actually, this is me telling him, yeah, in my take, I think there's such a big difference between Love and Purdy that it makes more sense for me. I can't make the deal any better. You're saying like, hey, I think you value Purdy a certain way,
Yeah.
and you could probably get more for Purdy. Yeah, it's just interesting. It's like normally when you're doing a trade like that, I don't usually see like same tier of player, similar tier of player flops. Like it's tough to do that. Usually it's like I want to tier down at quarterback and up here and like vice versa. So it might, there's better pockets of value to be gained, I think, when you do like tier ups, tier downs versus same tier. Let's see who wins.
Okay.
That's something to at least look into as another option.
Yeah, definitely take a look at it, see what you guys can do with it. Like I said, I'm higher on Purdy than I am on Love, but I am higher on Williams than I am on Tank Dell. So you can definitely find something out there that, would work. But for now, maybe hold on. Maybe ride the wave with Purdy going forward. So Ravens show yo, what's going on, man? He goes, traded away Puka and T. Higgins for Amon-Ra yesterday before Thursday Night Football. Phil greenlit the trade for me. Okay, that's good. Make sure you guys stay tuned and you get to hear more takes from Phil. It's year one of Keeper League. We keep 3. I have Tyreek, AJ Brown, and now Amon-Ra. Any thoughts? Well, congratulations on that wonderful team. There you are. I thought I lost you for a second.
No, I'm here.
You're
Getting some weird
adjusting
feedback
thing?
on the audio there, but I was like,
No,
man,
you're
why does
good.
this always happen right at the end with the weird audio?
No, I didn't hear anything crazy. So how do you got, what are your thoughts on that type of team? I mean, honestly, it's killer. Like that's a team that I'm scared
You're
to
one of the
face.
keeper league. 3. I can't get into the keeper thoughts because I just don't know the keeper settings. Those can always get really deep, but it's traded away Puka and T for Amon-Ra. Man, in general, keeper league questions always require like so much more thought. So like I have to just eliminate the keeper question and just say like,
well, it's also there's also penalties. There's also
there's
based
too
on the
much
round.
to go into.
If you have them all at a reasonable price that you don't have any, there's no penalty involved and you get to keep them all and then go for it. I definitely like all 3 of those next year. I think you'll be fine. But if
that's before Thursday Night Football. And now it's like, all right, post Thursday Night Football, how are we still like it? And after seeing that Puka is freaking animal.
No, I get it. It's one of the it was a tough call prior, and you were able to get Amon-Ra for it, so I don't hate that trade overall. So I mean, like
then you lose Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra's like, oh buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's coming off of back-to-back 20-point fantasy games, so like
you're gonna be fine. And honestly, at the end of the year, I think you're gonna even be better. So we got Daco.
In general, I like it, by the way. I think it's a league winning move because
100%.
Anytime you're doing 2 for 1, you're also getting the best player available on waivers. And if you're decent at that, you're not getting T. Higgins back, but you're getting something. I like the trade.
Yeah, for sure. So Daco, what's going on, man? He goes 8-man PPR. I traded Chase Brown for Pacheco. I'm 4-2 and have a strong team. What do you think?
Yeah, easy.
I don't hate that.
In that format in particular, where it's
100%.
all about like Chase Brown is barely startable in team PPR. Everything's about top 24 guys. You need to do whatever you can, whenever you can, to get like RB2, wide receiver 2 or better. Like the RB3s and wide receiver 3s just don't matter in 8-man formats.
The hard part is when you're going to get him back. He's probably not going to be back until like week 10 or later is my thought process on it. I think it's even going to be week 11 or 12 is the absolute latest. And that's him coming back from the injury and rehabbing. So hopefully everything went the way it should. It's a little bit of a risk, but it's a good risk overall.
In that
so-
format, I like only
in
because
that
like
format,
Chase
for sure.
Brown in 12 teams is really valuable because him over somebody terrible is him over somebody terrible, right? In
Yeah.
8-man, it's like you're starting him over Alexander Madison or Tyrone Tracy. You're starting him over like good options.
Yeah, for sure. So we have 3 questions left. We're going to be ending on those 3 questions. So just be aware of that. So make sure you guys keep your questions for Rasta and Phil. They're going to be right after us. We're going to be pretty much handing you right over to them when they get started. So we're going to be ending with Perry W at the bottom. But after that, stay tuned. We got more to give you. So struggling a little on wide receivers at the moment. Nico Collins, Debo, Deontay, Douglas, Calvin Ridley. Woo. Would you trade Tracy for JSN and Spears? Running backs are Hall, Demont, Hunt, Davis, and Moss. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I definitely would. JSN
I would
is
do
like
that in a heartbeat.
JSN's top tier, dude. Like
You
he's
get him today. Yeah, this
he's
week
cheap.
gonna
He's
be
like a cheap buy. Like he could
Yeah.
explode. He could have 12 targets for 10 catches and a touchdown
100%.
and be elite.
I would have done it. I would have done it on Thursday though.
that's a good
Before
point.
we got the news on Metcalf.
Yeah.
I would have. I honestly, if you can do it now, do it.
Like 5% chance that Tracy explodes towards the end of the year and they give him all the work and carries and he goes nuts. But it's a small percentage chance. It's not a big enough chance. I don't think.
No, for sure. So Funk, I'm gonna screw this up. I know it's
Win?
Fuck, and then no, it's Nugent. I know that's the name at the end. I just can never say the first. So Funik Nugent, how you doing, brother? I'm sorry if I butcher your name. I'm really bad. 10-man PPR redraft. Traded away Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison for Nico Collins and Olave. Thoughts? My other wide receivers are Kupp, Hopkins, McLaren, and Jennings. Ooh, I don't hate that. I like it for the, as a league winning type thing, getting Nico and Olave moving forward with Kupp and Hopkins and all them. I like that move.
Mm-hmm. So my thoughts are, I am seriously worried about Olave this year.
I'm less worried knowing that Carr would be back in, at least a week. Taysom Hill is healthy. He'll be back this week with Spencer Rattler involved. I like Taysom Hill a ton this week.
Like upside downside is like when it's this level of player, I look at like it's less about the nitty gritty rankings and it's more about like overall upside downside cases.
But remember, he wasn't there. He was only there for the first quarter of that game and got hurt with the concussion. He didn't get an opportunity to really meld with Spencer Rattler yet. I think Rattler is underrated in the way that he plays. They have to do a little bit more to protect him. But I do like overall because Carr will be back in a few weeks. He's basically investing in these two guys being hurt currently and waiting for them to work out in the long run.
Yeah, I get that in principle. I guess my thought was like,
I love it.
Well, the juice has to be there for that. My concern is I'm like, well, you're also giving up Marv, and Marv's late season development upside is like super top tier elite. Like if you think Nico's good, like Marv still has like Jamar Chase upside. Maybe not Jamar Chase because Jamar Chase is just too damn fast.
Yeah, but take off your dynasty hat for a minute. It's redraft. He's currently where he is.
What was saying? He's stashing, right? Because Nico and Olave aren't doing anything for you right now for a couple weeks, right?
For 2 weeks, if that. No, Olave's playing this week. He's fine. It's Nico Collins.
Fine, but Olave's barely cracking my lineups this week. And just
Fair
like
enough, but you're still you already played Kupp this week. You have Hopkins that you can use this week now in a new offense with Kansas City. McLaren's fine. Maybe a little bit down.
So like Nico over Wilson, but it's close. Is that fair?
No,
you think Nico by a mile.
Miles.
Hamstring.
I don't care. He's
Never
going to be
gets
healthy.
re-injured?
They're going to bring him back. It's less likely with rest and the amount of rehab that they do. Could he re-aggravate? Of course he could. Anyone can. But honestly, he's no to the moon.
Any nagging issues with like if he re-injures it even one time? It's like that. Like T Higgins, like, oh shit, am I in for a 4-week?
He hasn't been that. He hasn't shown that he's done that in the past. But honestly, this is his first year being the really main guy, if you will.
That's fair. So you're really in. I'm playing devil's advocate. So you're
100%.
really in on this because of Nico.
Yeah.
and you're like Olave, Marv, they're close, but Nico's so much better than Garrett Wilson that Nico wins me my
They're in
league if he
different
comes
tiers
back
to
and does
me.
his thing.
Wilson and Marvin Harrison are in two tiers at least, in my opinion, down. And it's Wilson and then Harrison for me.
I think it's a plus EV play, and that when it works the way you need it to work, it does win your league because Nico comes back as a top, as a top 10 wide receiver. Because if Nico is what he comes back and does what he's supposed to do, and then Olave is the key for me because Nico has to be what you think he's going to be, but Olave has to return to 20 point a game form. And Rashid Shaheed's done for the season, so if Carr gets back within 3 to 4 weeks, if
He'll be back next week,
right before the playoffs, Olave is starting to put up 20 point a game weeks.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, yes, I think it makes sense. And you do this trade to win your league, not to get a tiny bit better. You're calling a shot and saying Garrett Wilson will be good, not great. Marv will be good, not great at best. And
Carolina.
If I'm not going to start Marv anyway right now, Marv is not in this guy's lineup. Yeah. So you already might as well trade him to get something better for later on. In this case, you're flipping Garrett Wilson because people like me can't quit. Yeah, I think it's a good trade. Sorry, this one was good to go on because I'm just this is a really good trade. But yes, I would do this. It was close.
All right. So Perry is going to be our last question. I'm sorry, guys. We have the other guys waiting for you guys. They were just getting things together. But Perry, would you trade Mason for Higgins?
I would buy Higgins, sell Mason. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that now before you lose Mason. I know Higgins is hurt with the quad injury, but he can come back.
Burrow looks good. Offense looks good. Higgins looks pretty safe. You've seen it. Yeah. You're not worried about Higgins not being elite anymore. You've seen it. So yeah, Mason has way bigger question marks with being available.
All right. So I'm going to answer these really, really quick, even though we're going to move you guys along. Numa, I would do this. I'm not a big fan of Worthy. I would rather have Keenan Allen and Hop and play the long game on that. Braylon Richard, he goes full PPR, Hop, Pearsall, and Rome this week. Pearsall for me as well. And Sam, he goes PPR. Would you guys take a chance on Debo or Devontae Smith? It's Devontae Smith for me, and it's not even close.
It's Devontae Smith for me.
Yeah. So hope we answered those questions for you. I'm sorry we went so quick, but we had to go.
At least we agree at the end. We should do it more often.
We never did that. But make sure you guys check out Phil and Rasta. We're going to hand you off to them shortly. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys check out our other shows as well every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as well as Sunday morning. If you have any questions for Start Sit, come back and visit with me on Sunday morning. I'll answer your Start Sit questions as well as actives and inactives prior to game time. As you know, we also have waiver wire ads on Mondays. We have trade show on Wednesday. We have Phil's show. We have Tycoon. We got everybody here on the Get Right Fantasy Network. So make sure you guys stay tuned. We're going to hand you over to Rasta and Frank. Also, make sure you guys check out, of course, Kendall and Phil and Tycoon. Like I just said, these are their logos just so you can find them on YouTube. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to them. Also, check out Underdog Fantasy if you haven't already. Make sure you guys are using promo code Get Right. When you do, they will help you out 50% of your deposit. Woo! Thanks everybody for coming. We really do appreciate it. Kendall, as always, a wonderful time here talking football with you guys. Nino, Pina, thank you for your super chat and all those in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys stay tuned and check out Phil and Rasta. But everyone else, have a wonderful week 8. I hope everyone does well, except against me. I'll see you guys on Sunday morning. Hope everyone has a great week. Peace. We'll see you soon. Sorry, I had the outro.
White fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tune every Friday. Strategies provide.